All right, recording is started. It looks like my recording is being caught, so we are good to go. All right, welcome in, guys, and welcome to a interesting league we're doing today. We're actually looking over the PRs for the first Black Dolphin League. This is
Black Dolphins. Let's go.
This is a Nat Dex draft that was given. What were we given? 110, 105 points. 105 points for our draft between 10 what was it?
10 to 12 months.
10 to 12 months. And with some lower tier Terras, I think we've got some good teams this time, and I'm excited to see that this is the beginning to the Black Dolphins actually getting off into their own draft league. With me today speaking, you guys can also hear the commissioner of the Black Dolphins League, Giovanni Dude, and in the background,
hello.
And in the background as well, you should hear Gray on occasion, one of our coaches that we'll be covering eventually.
Hello.
And you might hear some other voices pop in from time to time, but you know, we'll cross those bridges when we get to them.
A strong 6.
All right. So,
thank you, JT. Very cool.
all right. So, our first, so we're going to be going through all 16 coaches of the league. We're going to be looking over, me and Gio, we're going to be giving our thoughts, our ideas and opinions on how strong we think the teams are, what do we think their weaknesses, strengths are. And then once we're done with that, we're going to go throw them into this here tier list showing top 4, top 8, bottom 4, bottom 8 to give us an idea of what we think is going to be some of the powerhouses and who just kind of flopped with their drafts this time around. So
I do want to preface this. None of us think any of the teams are bad,
except Owls.
I think they're all pretty good, to be honest.
Yeah, I think everybody's team is good. We're not throwing shade at anybody. Somebody has to be first and somebody has to be last. But we're just kind of going through. This is mainly for fun, for content and that kind of thing.
And these are
kind of
just
talking
opinions.
About and giving our opinions. And
yeah.
Everything is subjective and fluid also. This is before week 1 has officially started. Some games have been played, but this is kind of our subjective opinions and thoughts on what we see, the power level of the team, utility of the teams, and that sort of thing. So
yeah, and remember that this is just looking at the teams themselves. It has nothing to do with the level of play that the coaches are going to be capable of. So if you've got a rough looking team, sounds like you got to up your skill level and show us that you've got the ability to run it better than anybody else.
Absolutely, it could be a skill issue.
So with that, let's go to our first team, which I'm hearing some, I'm hearing some rumblings from the fans and from, spectators, other coaches that, the draft order may or may not have been rigged, because our first coach is the commissioner himself, Gio.
Your very own.
So you're sick, you ask me.
So with Gio's team, he went with Kyrum Black, Heatran, Quaquaval, Regieleki, Houndstone, Hippopowdon, Espeon, Tornadus Therian, Drapion, the Mega was Audino, and Spidops rounds it out. Terracaps being Houndstone and Espeon.
One thing I do want to add that we forgot to mention is that there are some complex bans on some restricted Pokemon. So in my case, Kyrum Black does not have access to Dragon Dance.
Thank God.
So that is something to keep in mind. So some of these guys that you're like, why the fuck is Kyrum here? He doesn't have Dragon Dance.
I remember wanting to let this thing use Dragon Dance when I still thought that I'd be able to draft it.
All right. With that said,
let's take a closer
do you want to
look.
give your thoughts?
Oh, let's take a closer look at this, shall we? So, My initial thoughts with this is the team's got a decent level of power to it. Like, you've got multiple mons that can just step into the ring and just immediately smack down, right? Like, you've got, between Kyurem Black, Regieleki, Espeon, Tornadus, you've got a lot of immediate threats. My only thing is I don't really see a lot in the way of setups. Like, you've got a lot of immediate pressure, but you don't really have a lot to like set up on to be able to be like, all right, I know, or my opponent's not really giving a lot of pressure right now, so I can potentially try to set up a mon and catch him off guard.
I think that's a pretty interesting perspective. Because I almost feel the opposite about this team. I think that other than Kyurem Black, it does not have a ton of major like wall breaking potential. Right off the bat, things like Tornadus or Quackaball really, I think, are snowballers or require that setup to really get going. To be clear, I really like this team. I think that it's a really strong, balanced team with a lot of layers to it. And,
yeah, I mean, I really do like. There's a lot going on here that does really work well in its favor. I mean, it kind of. I can see where you're going with the whole like it's a more balanced style team. I mean, admittedly, I'm gonna be loving to see how often you actually bring Spite Ops, because Spite Ops is a lot of your more utility hazards. I think you've got really good hazard removal between Quackable and Regieleki. Neither one of them alone are that great when it comes to actually removing hazards, since they're both relatively frail Pokemon. But between the two of them, you should find good abilities to remove every week. Plus with, Tornadus having the defog.
Yep.
But I feel like you're probably not going to be clicking defog too often with Heatran and Hippowdon having easy access to rocks. I don't know how easy you're going to find yourself, clicking defog without setting yourself behind as well.
Right.
I'll say any team with Quackaball on it is always going to be a little better than it looks on preview. This Quackaball is possibly one of the most underrated mons in all of draft. That thing is a monster offensively. It's got surprisingly good utility. So I think that this could be a sneaky team for sure. I have it ranked to my top 4 personally.
Yeah, I think you guys are both spot on. Since this is my team, want to let you guys give your opinions first, since I'm obviously biased to it. So when I drafted this team, after looking at what everybody else had, I was like, my team's a little too honest compared to what other people have. But I think the pieces all work well together. Heatran and Hippo are both great rockers. Between Quavo, Aleki, and Torn, there's plenty of hazard removal. The speed tiers are really good. I think every speed tier is covered other than like Dragapult with my team. So anything under like 140, and then I have Aleki, which is the fastest mon in the game.
Yeah.
And there's not really much type. I don't think there's any type overlap with my team. And then both Espeon and Houndstone are good Terra captains. So I wouldn't rate myself as the best team in the league. I have my thoughts on who that is. Amzers. But I think I did a really good job drafting this team, and I think you guys are both spot on with the lack of immediate pressure, but also kind of simultaneously the need to be able to set up the mons in order to really break through, because it's pretty honest, comparatively. So I would say that it probably is a top 4 team, but I'm biased, so I would leave that to you two.
I feel
the team is ugly, bottom 4.
I feel like like you said, it's an honest team, so it's got a lot of good strength to it, but at the same time, it doesn't feel overwhelming in any sense, which is weird considering I'm looking at Akira in Black right now. But the team overall just feels fine. Like, I feel like the team is decent, but it doesn't have that, you know, oh my god, I'm going to die just looking at this. You know what I mean?
You know, to me, this looks like a team that someone who makes good calls in game. It's going to be really annoying to face a good player piloting this team, and I know Gio's that, so I feel strongly that this is a really.
And that's what I think this
It's
is.
gonna be
I think
annoying to face.
I think this is a good team. It's not by itself broken, but in the hands of a good player, it can be elevated higher. But if we're just talking
Right.
the team itself, I think top 8 is fair for it.
Okay, yeah, I think that's fair with Duke. JT, what would you say? What do you feel, Mr. Fantano here? If you're there,
I can give it a strong 8.
Strong 8.
Hey, good
Strong
scale.
8.
I
So
definitely
that-
feel it at least
personally-
belongs in the top half of them. I don't know
Yeah.
how I feel about it being in the top 4. Is
we
the,
can,
like,
we can
I
always
personally
we
have
can
it
always
there,
right,
we
as
can
we go
always
through,
come
you
back.
know, and we
Yeah.
find
Right.
things that, you know, is like, oh, now we've got 6 things in the top 8. We'll revisit and be like, maybe this one squeaks up to a top 4, you know?
I like that.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe like for now we can put it in top 8. Maybe my team is 5, 6, and if we want to reorder at the end, we can. So
Right. All right, so let's move on. Next team is Conrad's team with the LA Slowkings. Noggindle,
Oof.
Palafin, Mega Mawile, Great Tusk, Grimmsnarl, Terravicavolt, Cophagregus, Meowstic Male, Arcanine Terra Captain, and Simisage.
I have
Alright.
very strong feelings about this one.
wow, that's
Like-
wow is what I gotta say for this team.
So looking in deeper on this one, this, like when I was saying like you look at a team and you're afraid and you fear for your life just looking at it, this is what I mean.
I agree. I mean-
Palafin, Mega Mawile, Great Tusk. I don't know how
the
he afforded
average
that.
base, the average base attack of this team has to be like 140. Like
You can see it on the
Surprisingly, it's only 88. It's actually like a relatively bulky team. And when this is
Simisage and Meowstic are bringing that down a lot. But
100%.
for Conrad does not have a very deep team, but for the mons that count, that you're going to be bringing every week, Naganadel in this case cannot use Nasty Plot, but it kills. But we do allow Baton Pass with one side at a time, so it can receive Nasty Plot boost via Baton Pass, and it still has Beast Boost. He can Speed Pass to Mawile. He has Palafin, which that's automatic top 4. We are the Black Dolphins, and Palafin is the Black Dolphin. Great Tusk is, you know, one of the most perfect Pokemon ever made.
It's
Sticky
gotta be one
webs,
of the top
rings.
mons that we've seen out of Gen 9 easily.
Team is,
Absolutely.
I'm going to be honest with you guys. I ranked this team too low. This team's really good.
I mean, see, here's the thing. Like, it is an incredibly powerful team, right? But this is all, you gotta remember, this is still draft format. So your
Right.
opponent's gonna be able to see this team and know what's coming and be able to prep ahead of time for it. And like we said at the very beginning of this, we're gonna be seeing a lot of the same mons. You're gonna see Noggindale, Palafin, Mawile, and Great Tusk almost every single match.
exactly.
Like, the
Well,
latter
honestly-
half of this draft are going to be utilities that come week to week. So if you
I-
know
I-
that
so-
every single week that you're going to be fighting down Nagano, Palafin, Mega Mawile, Great Tusk, then every opponent's going to be able to be like, all right, what are my counters to those specifically?
I'm
Yep.
currently prepping for this team, and you're correct in the fact that it's very top heavy, but it's just so challenging when you have several different wall breakers on different sides of the physical special spectrum. Alphin can be mixed. Grimsnarl can do a variety of different support. They can bring webs. They have an amazing physical wall. Confagrigus. It's a really hard team to prep for because I honestly think the low tier picks here really make the team. It's so hard to prep for those top 4 because these last couple, I'm talking about Vikavolt, Confagrigus, Arcanine, even Meowstic, they can all create very significant matchup problems. On preview, if you prepare for the wrong team. They got immunities, they have they can suppress your abilities, they can status you, they can set screens. I think that this is going to be a really challenging team to face, and as someone who's prepping for it right now, and I feel strong about my team, but I'm having a lot of trouble trying to decide exactly what to bring because it's just a lot of power that you have to be ready for. This is a team that can snowball really fast, in my opinion, especially with a mon like Gonadale.
Yeah, Beast Boost is real tough to deal with. Another thing that Conrad has going for him is he has really strong priority, like really strong. Jet Punch, Terra Extreme Speed, Terra Normal, Arcanine Extreme Speed.
The Terra Normal Extreme Speed on Arcanine is a huge game changer here.
Yeah, it's a huge pickup late round.
And even Vikavolt, Steel and Poison Terras are pretty good. I think the biggest weakness Conrad has, other than Semi-Sage, I don't know if he's ever really going to bring Semi-Sage to a game.
You might see it come 1 week specifically to counter something.
Yeah, but I think the only real weakness he has is really lack of hazards, because only Great Tusk and Mawile get Stealth Rock, and you don't really want to be using a turn on those mons to set up Stealth Rock. Confagrigus does get Toxic Spikes, so that is good. And Confagrigus is a great mon, but, he's pretty much playing without hazards for the most part. I guess he does.
This kind of just feels like a hyper, this feels like hyper offense to me. This just 100% feels like hyper offense. He's not going to care about clicking Stealth Rocks because that Stealth Rocks isn't going to chunk him on for over half its health. That's not going to be anything that's ever going to happen. So I see him clicking rocks maybe once or twice if he's trying to catch someone off guard, or spikes or anything like that. The only hazard that he'll bring is webs, because that Vikavolt getting webs down will allow him to just run through games.
Great Tusk and Mega Mawile under webs it just sounds disgusting.
Yep. And my only thing with this is if there's a team that for some reason has the ability to try to weather what this has got, the defensive end of this team doesn't hold up well. The Confagrigus is a great mon, but its only form of recovery is Pain Split.
Pain Split. Yep.
And he's got no wish support. He's got no ability to restore health once it's gone, aside from Palafin Drain Punch. So any damage that happens on this team is pretty permanent. There's no way to fix that. So it's going to be a race against time for every one of Conrad's matches. And I feel like the longer a match goes, the more things will start to shift in his opponent's favor.
Arcanine does have Morning Sun, so that is something to note. So I guess he does have defensive Arcanine he can run, but yeah, pretty much everything else is I'm going to kill you before you kill me.
Right. Here's the thing is Arcanine has healing though, but I would never consider Arcanine a defensive mon, because the only time the only damage it's reducing is Intimidate. It's meant to come in
or Flash Fire.
It's not coming. The only time it's coming as Flash Fire is, if the opponent has an incredibly powerful fire type that Palafin for some reason can't handle.
No, I think it has good defensive stats. I think it's really a good all-rounder.
It's definitely good all around, but I wouldn't really classify as defensive.
It's on more this team, balanced Pokemon.
Yeah, on this team, it's filling a more defensive role.
Extra hit is very crucial, I think, in building, and that Arcanine's the type of mon that will make or break some matches. I can promise you.
Oh, 100%. I definitely agree. And Intimidate is one of the best abilities in the game for a reason.
Our very own Tiger will go to bat for Arcanine.
Every time.
With its utility. With all that said, I would say we're probably all in agreement that this is probably not the number one team in the league, but I would say this is a top 4 team for sure.
That's really strong. I think I'm fine with that being top 4. Yeah,
easily LA Slowkings in the top 4.
It's really terrifying.
Yeah,
the more time I spend prepping for it, the more I'm like, damn, this is a challenge.
Oh, it's got good layers to it. It's not going to be an easy team to break. So I 100% I give Conrad the props for this. Like,
and I made a pick on this roster, so I can take a small part of the credit.
Hey, but he doesn't have Zamazenta though.
Nope.
Oh, we'll get there.
No Zamazenta.
We'll get there.
All right. Looking up next, we've got Voids, the captain of the Limber Luchadores, fielding Mega Blaziken, Sandy Shocks, which is a Terra captain. That one surprised me. Tapu Fini, Scizor, Pure Grass Ogerpon, Dragalg, Terra Swellow, Deoxys Speed, Alolan Persian, and Orbeetle. I love this team.
I really like this team. I
think this team is really cool because this I hate
really
to say
fun.
it, but this is a glass cannon team.
Oh yeah.
This team just exemplifies Deoxys Speed. Everything is meant to come out, hit fast, hit hard, or die trying. The only defensive end of this team is Dragalg and Persian, and I love that.
Well, Scizor can run a really good defensive set. I've drafted Scizor before in the past, and most of the time it was a U-turn defensive merchant. Tapu Fini, can soak a few hits up. I do agree that this is definitely more of an offensive build, but he's got some mons that can take some hits. Sandy Shocks has good bolt. Tapu Fini has great bolt. Scizor has good bolt. Even Ogerpon, Deoxys Speed, because it's so fast, can invest in HP.
Deoxys Speed can take a single hit.
It takes one hit. I feel like that thing's almost going to always come as Sash, and if it doesn't, then it's a really risky play.
I think a Sash is a waste on it. I mean, it's got 95 in its defenses. It's not wasted.
The problem is its HP, base HP being 50 makes it a little too low to actually make good use of those 90s.
Yeah.
If its base HP was 70, 75, maybe 80, then then you could probably say it can tank a hit relatively well, but base 50 it's gonna get blown over. But I mean, this team's not meant to take hits, it's meant to deal hits. And
Mega Blaziken, right there.
And
oh man,
honestly, the fact I love about this team is almost every single mon on this team has the ability to pivot. So this is going to be an incredibly agile team. So if Voids is able to,
literally every single mon, yeah.
The only one who doesn't is Tapu Fini, I think.
Oh yeah, no, Tapu Fini. Does it get Baton Pass?
Does it?
Not the prep dog says not.
According to the prep dog, it
does. Yeah,
so,
I don't think it does.
But I mean, Tapu Fini being the only mon here that doesn't have any pivoting means that Voids can come out, take the offense, and just run with it. By being able to keep up with, because these are all amazing, really good. Every one of them works as a pivot for everyone else. So this is just going to be, an interchanging team of, try to keep up with my endless switching.
Yeah, this is the most offensive team I've ever seen.
And I really like this team for that, because I'm a sucker for pivoting.
The problem is that the hazard removal is almost, you have Swellow, which doesn't want to defog. You have Scyther, who doesn't want to defog.
Blaziken that doesn't really want to, and Tapu Fini for some reason gets defogged. Didn't know that one.
Well,
hazard
I would say I disagree, Gray. I think Voids is going to do fine with hazards. Tapu Fini is probably as reliable as a defogger as you get. He has plenty of taunt Pokemon between Deoxys, Persian, and Ogerpon, who all like to run taunt. And if he's running a defensive Scizor, default can easily slot in there.
It's definitely Void's MO. I've seen him play a lot of leagues, and he generally does not prioritize hazards or removal.
But he's got two mons
what?
that have
He
really
keeps winning
strong.
games. He's a great player. So
Yeah.
I like this for him. I think that he is going to do well.
This hazard game is crazy between Deoxys, who's gonna get at least 2 spikes if it wants to. Sandy Shocks is gonna be a great rocker, and Dragalge is gonna be, a good T spiker. I think Orbeetle gets Sticky Web too, doesn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
So
I think that's a great pickup.
The hazard game is crazy for Voids.
The only problem here is the fact that there is no spinner means that you have to rely on defog. So your own hazard game is kind of weakened because of that. If there was one mon on here that was just a solid rapid spinner, then this team would honestly easily be top 4 for me. But I think without that spinner and basing yourself off of a very pivot heavy strategy, you kind of lose a little bit because you're not able to set your own hazards because you're so reliant on defog.
I agree with that. I think this team kind of has a similar thing to what mine has, where it just seems a little too honest. Mega Blaziken is crazy, but other than that, I would say every Pokemon can be very manageable to deal with. Scizor, Ogerpon, even Deoxys, like they all have, pretty reliable checks that you can have on, your build.
Yeah, and they're very easy to come by too. It's not like trying to find a counter for Deoxys speed is going to be all that difficult. For Blaziken, for Sandy Shocks, every single one of these pieces has very clear checks and counters that most teams are going to have something for.
Yep.
But that's where the pivoting is going to come really in handy with this team, is because of that. Voids is going to have to be on the move so much to just try to keep his opponent guessing and on edge about what check comes in where, because if the wrong check goes down, the team has the ability to just run through once that one counter is gone. So it's this team will definitely come down to how well it's piloted. But I do believe that this is an honest team.
Not to say too much, I have been talking to Voids. He is likely going to be making some moves that will supplement some of these issues that we have with the team.
So So are we thinking above or below Geo's team?
I'm thinking below for now because of the mainline issues that we have. I really love this team. I'd enjoy using it, but I think
this team feels like one of the best in this league to pilot. I would love playing with this team. But that seems relatively fair. You both are very honest teams, and I think the very pivot heavy strategy without any kind of sustainability really does hurt it. I think if he had a Wish Passer on here, this would probably crack top 4 for me.
Yeah, that's another thing, is the recovery is there's not really much there's no recovery on this team really, other than Roosters or
to me that's really important for if you're gonna go with a pivot heavy strategy. Not having a Wish Passer feels like a crime.
I think we pretty much I agree with pretty much everything said here. I think this is definitely a top 8 team, but the ceiling of this team can be much higher. I think Voids can definitely outplay and overperform with this team.
Oh, I agree 100%.
With that said, JT, what are we feeling here?
Okay, so let me backtrack because you guys skipped me for Conrad's team.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Okay, so for Conrad's team, what I was going to say is that I didn't know we had Tom Thibodeau as a coach here. In the sense of New York Knicks, very, very top heavy. You're gonna see the top. Okay, so get this. You're gonna see the same 5 Pokemon playing 38 minutes for 82 games. With that being said, he knows how to pilot that motherfucker. I give that a decent 9.
Nice.
Fair enough.
And for Voids,
Yep.
with the past experience from what I've seen, it's not about like you gotta play what you're comfortable with, and he knows how to run hyper offense. I'll also give this one a decent 9
All right.
for coach
Respectable.
experience.
All right, let's
I'd
move.
be remiss if I didn't mention Swellow, because Swellow is a threat.
That is fair.
Physical
We kind
or
of just
special wall breaker, completely are impossible to predict.
He
and dangerous at all times.
another thing is that he has 3 of the best priority attackers: stab, bullet punch, guts, quick attack, and extreme speed deoxys. Pretty good.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Priority is good.
All right, moving on
Decent
to
number.
our 4th coach. We've got the Absolutionists, piloted by Leon. We've got Celesteela, Florges, Mega Sceptile, Sneasler, Mega Swampert, Terra Hisuian Arcanine, Hitmonlee, Obstagoon, Spectrier, and Rotom Frost. Now, I find this funny because this is the only team in the league that drafted 2 Megas, and for some reason one of them was Mega Swampert.
You know,
It
it's
might
funny.
be partially.
It's funny. He did not message me to drop either of the megas. So you know, Owen for life, I guess.
Well, yeah, I think he would have drafted Blaziken too if he had the chance.
Probably.
This
Yeah.
team has the potential to be really strong, I think, because Forge's Wish support with Celesteela and Mega Swampert, even Spectre, is really scary. But I think a lot of it hinges on how he's able to play that Forges, because I think that's as crucial of a piece to this team as you could possibly get.
I agree.
Yeah.
I feel like this is how Leon works too. He'll draft teams that nothing alone is like incredibly terrifying, but everything comes together as cogs to a machine that just feels that when you look at the whole thing, it's well oiled, it's fine tuned, and just every single piece is doing something to help counter for everything else. And
Conrad also mentioned Shedtail, which I think is important.
Shedtail being legal is definitely something worth mentioning. That means that Mega Sceptile can pass a sub to anyone else on this team, which is potentially problematic. I think this team is definitely something to be worried about. I feel like, because like you look at the base stat totals, the problem with they look really high, with attack being average 101, speed being average 96, special defense being average 99. The problem here is that the stats are being artificially boosted by Mega Swampert. Because if we're being honest, that Mega Swampert's not coming to a lot.
Hmm.
And if
I
it does, it's
disagree.
going to be less valuable than if it was just regular Swampert.
Hmm.
I think the
Yeah,
additional
he-
bulk that's going to come
Leon-
from it isn't going to be as helpful as, if it just had, all leftovers or a utility item on it.
Yeah, Leon did want regular Swampert, but got sniped on it.
I was trying to get him to get regular, and it got taken from him.
I feel like going Mega Swampert instead of like Quagsire, Clodsire, something. I feel like the Mega Swampert is going to be a because you got to remember, if the Swampert comes, that means the Sceptile isn't, and the Sceptile I feel is better for this team overall than the Swampert is.
Yeah.
So if the Swampert's coming, you're losing an amazing pivot mon for a bulky water ground type. Like, don't get me wrong, it's one of the best typings in the game,
But yeah,
but losing a Mega Sceptile to do so feels lackluster here. Because being able
One
to
thing I
shed
wanna-
tail into a Sneasler or a Celesteela or even that Arcanine, which can go in Water Terra, Like, there's a
Yeah.
lot of things that would appreciate a sub. The Spectrier, especially. This team would really love to get that, that Shed Tail from Mega Sceptile. Because of
Shed
that,
Tail from Mega Sceptile does definitely pull the team together. I feel like one thing I want to know is about Leon's team is, where is the water resist? Mega Sceptile is the only water resist on the team.
Yep.
And I guess if he Terras the Arcanine with Terra Water, another thing that I want to point out with this team is Sneasler and Hitmonlee are great unburdened sweepers, but there's not really anything for them on this team to take advantage of that. There's no Tapu Fini, there's no Tapu Lele, Bulu, anything of the sort.
See, here's the thing: is even if there was, I feel like it's an unnecessary overlap. Sneasler does the exact same that Hitmonlee does. The only thing that Hitmonlee provides that Sneasler doesn't is a few coverage moves. I feel like
being able to unburden sweep helps them reach their full potential because it makes them harder to revenge kill. Sneaser's base speed and Hitmonlee speed are both pretty good, in Sneaser's case, really good. But 120 speed, if you have a Scarfmon, that's very manageable to, hit that mark. But with unburden boost, Sneasler is basically unspeedable. Like, I think the only thing that can get it is like maybe like a Scarf Regieleki or Deoxys,
But see, here's the thing: is I think the only reason that Hitmonlee is here, and I don't like it, is it's the only spinner on this team. There's decent defogging with Rotom Frost and Florges, but there's not a lot of hazard removal here. There's not a lot of hazard removal. There's not a lot of
relying on Florges.
Right, and there's not a lot of pivoting either.
And his only real rocker is Mega Swampert.
Right. Like, he's gonna have to play Mega Swampert like it's a defensive regular Swampert. Because, I mean, it would have been a little bit better if he, instead of that Hitmonlee, he took like a Politoed, give himself like a small Rain Core to be able to work in there. I think that would have been really, really cool. I would have loved that. But I feel like the Hitmonlee just doesn't make sense here to me. And those points could have been spent a lot better. Either go for, a more dedicated rapid spinner, set up that, mini Rain Core or something like that. But essentially it's just coming here as a weaker Sneasler.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. I think the team does have a lot of snowball potential with Celesteela behind a sub, Spectrier behind a sub, Sneasler behind a sub. But in order for that to happen, Leon has to really position himself well, take advantage, and make plays. I'm personally feeling this is probably, I think it's a great team. Spectrier, Celesteela, Sneasler, those are really good Pokemon. But I'd probably place this in bottom 4, maybe in the top half of bottom 4.
Let's see. The Absolutionists, are you thinking bottom 8 or bottom 4?
I'd go bottom 4.
I don't
because
necessarily.
I know what's coming up, but
we'll probably see some changes from Leon potentially. But yeah, Leon usually builds these really well fine-tuned oiled machines, and there's just a few hiccups in this machine that really just stop it from being that every single mon, he's got 3 contingencies for.
Yep.
And I feel like this team has potential to, bump up to easily top 8 with a few changes, but as it is right now, it's definitely going to get some wins. Don't get me wrong. It's going to snake some wins off of people, but I feel like it's just missing things.
Sneasler alone will get you a couple of wins just off of Dire Claw Cheese.
Yeah.
and Celesteela off of Beast Boost. But I think some of his mons are kind of easy to take advantage of. Spectrier, you know, having a good normal type on your team kind of blanks that, and that's his biggest, you know, one of his biggest threats.
Yeah.
Sneasler can't really touch, you know, poison type. So if you have one of those, a defensive poison type, you know, I think he definitely has opportunity to outplay and to make plays. But you know, there are some things holding this team back, I think.
No, I completely agree. And JT,
Our expert,
our
local expert.
Give this a strong 7.
Okay.
respectable. All right, now to the obvious best team in the league, mine.
Miss Dookie boy.
My
All right.
team, the LA Ludicolos. We've got Terra Septile, Terra Ditto, Megalopunny, Rotom Heat, Alomomola, Tinkaton, Terra Scyther, Reverum, Chi-Yu, and Latios. Not gonna lie, I love this team. I think this team is fantastic. It fits 100% of what I love to do in Mons.
We got a lot of
this is definitely Duke's patented chaos. Not as much as we've seen from him in the past. Mega Saptile can and will run Shed Tail. I'm sorry, regular Septile. This is not Mega.
Yep.
And you know, this guy can hold leftovers, can hold Citrus Berry. The Ditto is there, and I think Ditto in this draft is probably a really good pick because we got some demons.
Oh yeah.
Megalopunny, Chi-Yu, Latios, that's a lot of power there. Good pivots with Rotom and Aloe. Tinkaton's a great rocker. I've used Reverum before, and that thing is great with Parting Shot, T-Spikes, and even his lower tier pick with Scyther is a pretty good mon, especially since it can Terra out of its rock weakness.
Yeah, my favorite offensive core in draft to run is a Fighting Psychic Dark core, and this is about as good as it gets for one of those. As far as offensive output goes, I think this draft obviously looked a little weaker in the beginning on the first half.
Yeah.
To be fair, that is how I draft, though. After the first few rounds, once everybody spent the majority of their points, and I know I'm no longer going to get, you know, sniped, I don't need to spend the big points. I can continue fighting with y'all, be one step ahead of you getting the value picks, and save a few big things for last. I love drafting that way.
I think it has 2 really good pivots in Rotom Heat and Aloe, and also I think they will cover each other very well when in pivoting. And something, if you have a Chi-Yu and you have a Mega Lop, like, you're going to be doing damage and off of those volt switches and those flip turns off your pivots. This is a scary team.
No, yeah, I definitely agree. With that said, Duke, do you want to give your thoughts on your team?
So, with this, I wanted to go back to my roots, you know? I wanted to make sure I had myself the proper chaos elements with, you know, my Ditto. But I work best when I am doing a balanced pivot heavy strategy. And I think I did relatively well here with this. We've got a few mons that don't have any, but the majority of my mons have good pivoting power. I like the offensive capability. There is a good mix between setups and immediate power here. The one thing that I'm a little upset with is the lack of spinner and the lack of hazards as a whole. I feel like, since, you know, my only hazard game is really going to be, you know, rocks with Tink and spikes with Vroom.
T-Spikes.
The T-Spikes, right. With those being my only hazards available to me, I'm going to be clicking a lot of defog buttons and that might end up costing me a few games. Because like I don't like the idea of not having a spinner, but I was very happy with how this team came out to try changing things around to find one.
Yeah. One thing I do want to add also is the team is pretty hazards weak. So Scyther 4 times weak, Chiyu Stealth Rock weak, Rotom Stealth Rock weak, Omega Lopunny can't hold boots.
Yeah.
And you know, with your only real defoggers being Latios, who probably doesn't want to defog, and Rotom, you know, that can be difficult to combat as well.
Yeah.
I definitely agree with that. My ability to handle hazards is going to be a problem for the most part, especially since I've decided to go for a more pivot heavy build. However, at least having the Alomomola giving me access to really good wish passing will at least stem that to a very manageable degree, I would think.
Yeah, I think Aloe Wish Pass is definitely going to be kind of an X factor for the team.
Yep.
You know, there are some mons that can be inconsistent with Ditto, Scyther, and Aloe if you don't get the Wish Pass off.
Right.
But I having, like Gray said, the fighting Psychic Dark Core is elite on this team, and Sceptile with Sceptile with Shed Tail, tongue twister. Can definitely elevate some of those guys.
We're gonna have a lot of trouble switching these.
Yeah.
Right.
Personally, I would put this right under Void's team because there are some inconsistencies, especially with the hazard game. But the offensive power, I think this team can definitely compete with the best of them. Just based off of, you have Mega Lopunny, you have Chi, you have Latios,
Right, and I definitely think that this team is going to do well for me over the season. I'll be curious to see just how badly the hazards affect me. But also one thing we probably should mention is there's no swagger ban.
Unburdened Sceptile, Bilbo Swaggins.
I have become famous for the Swagger Sceptile, the Swagger Unburdened Sceptile build, and at least one person will probably get hit by it.
The Terras on Sceptile are good too. Grass Rock, that's basically Ogre Pond Cornerstone.
Yep.
It's got Fairy,
Yeah, I figured since Tinkaton was a bit more defensive, having a more offensive Fairy would be really good for me. So I'm hoping that this works out well for me. And JT, your thoughts, our expert?
Okay, so Duke took saying thick thighs saves lives. Sceptile, Megalopunny,
Hey,
Scyther, to extend Tinkaton and Latios. Pivot game strong. Defog merchant. I give it a light 9.
okay.
I respect it.
High ratings from our resident expert.
Yeah. All right.
Gray, where are you feeling placing this team?
I really like this team, and honestly, it looks a lot like the draft order. Maybe not, but the members looks a lot like a team that I would enjoy using. I like it a lot. I think the lack of rapid spin personally brings it down a decent degree. I think personally, I might put it at the top of maybe bottom 8, just because of that.
Okay.
That's fair.
I can get behind that, and we can reorder. Because we do have quite a few teams and quite a few threats to go through still.
Oh yeah.
I think this offensive core is something that is going to be very threatening and fun to use. I personally would really enjoy using this team.
Yeah.
All right. Well, moving on from, the best coach in the league, we'll move to Crummel with the Lazy Chomps. We've got
arguably another one of the best
dude.
coaches in the league.
This
Oh, yeah.
team is fat and annoying.
the fact that Iron Crown is able to be a Terra captain terrifies me.
Steel
It's-
fairies, yeah, that's tough. Even Kilowatt flying ice. Those Terra caps are pretty good.
Yeah, this team I am scared of over. Crummel's definitely got himself a powerhouse here. Like, are like really well done. It's got a decent amount of pivoting. It's got good hazard setup. It's got an amazing spinner with Terrapagos.
Yeah, I mean, what's your flaw that you find in this team? Because it's got the hazard support, it's got the spinner. I would say it's not even really weak to any type. The fairy there on the type chart is red, but you got Iron Crown.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
I mean, there's a.
How worried can you really be?
It just means that there's more weaknesses than resistances. But if the resistances are just good for that, then those really don't matter that much. And Rock's not any better here because like you've got Cinderace, which is not going to be a fire type half the time, and you've got Kilowattrel, which can just pivot out or can just Terra out of its rock weakness.
Both his Terra types are still weak to rock.
Oh, never mind then.
Yeah, Kilowatt's weak to rock no matter what.
Even so, though, I mean, you got a Vaporeon and you got Iron Crown sitting right there.
Yeah,
he does have
Rydar.
good wish support. He's got Heal Bell with Altaria also. This team wasn't really one that was on my radar, but yeah, this team's great.
It's really good, yeah.
Chien Pao is his big threat, and I think he supports it really well. Between Sinistra and Mega Altaria, like all of Chien Pao's weaknesses are covered there. I guess other than Steel, but you have Iron Crown, you have Vaporeon, you have Cinderace.
Yep.
The pivot potential is great with Volt Switch Iron Crown, U-turn Cinderace, Flip Turn Vaporeon. Just pivoting in the Keems is like, man, you're just firing off crunches for days.
Yeah, or Sucker Punch. I mean, anything that you want to scarf, the fighting types and dark types that are going to resist a Sucker Punch are handled pretty effectively.
The speed tiers are also great. Yeah. There's really not like I can't really see any flaws in this team. He's got a good.
It's got
good
a decent
edge
amount of pivoting ability too, which is gonna allow him to, if someone does get the upper hand on him, the ability to get himself out into a better position too.
Leave it to Crumel to build a great team.
Yeah.
I think this is just an incredibly solid team. Like I would almost say that this feels fair, but it's so fair that it feels unfair.
One thing is, I've
Just a
used
great
Mega
balance.
Altaria. I've used Mega Altaria before, and it can be pretty underwhelming at times with its power. He does, other than Chien Pao, he really doesn't have much immediate threat potential. Cinderace can definitely be a problem, and he has. I don't even think that's a problem for him though, because he has Terrapagos. It's like, okay, you live a hit, you set up. Terrapagos is going to live back and set up back in your face.
Oh, 100%. I think Terrapagos is a huge potential just game ender. I disagree slightly with his with the idea of that he doesn't have a lot of immediate power, because if he could easily just bring Specs Crown.
Yeah,
True.
I mean, a choice band on Cinderace or Chien Pao is gonna chunk everything.
Yeah, Specs Crown is kind of easy to, like, you have to click Focus Blast in order to hit the resist, and you're clicking Focus Blast. But yeah, Abandoned Cinderace and Abandoned Chien Pao, like, there's not much in the game that can switch into those guys consistently. I would honestly put this team in probably top 4. I'd probably put it under Conrad's team. I think that's the only one we have up there right now.
I think this is the strongest team that we've analyzed so far.
You would say this is better than Conrad's?
I think it's a little better because it has the variety. Like Conrad's is pretty top heavy and it's
True,
really
true.
strong. But this one can, I mean, anything can come at any week and it's going to be a problem.
True. He does have better recovery options with Roost Altaria, Roost Gligar, Sinistcha gets Strength Sap, I think. And then, of course, Vaporeon with Wish. Regen Mienshao also. That's a really good Pokemon.
I just have to say, my
Yeah.
rankings that I had earlier this week are just all. I'm completely disregarding those at this point because they were
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah,
The more I look
I
at these
think I
teams,
agree
like
with
this
you.
one was on my bottom 8, and this is a great team.
Yeah, I honestly think that this does actually sit above the Slowkings, mainly
I
because
think
like
so
the
too.
Slowkings have that terrifying, like in your face, I'm gonna die feel, but the Lazy Chomps here just have that, you know, impenetrable wall feel almost. So, like, where do you begin
This is
trying to
what's
break
gonna-
this?
You're gonna have to play. This is gonna be at least 40, plus turns at least if you're gonna win a match versus this team.
Right, or you got to do some crazy reading.
Yeah.
All right, JT, you wanna?
Yeah,
Your
you guys
thoughts?
nailed it. You guys nailed it. It can go stall if it wants to. It can definitely eat hits and do chip damage. That's all it needs is chip damage. The top 3 Pokemon on this team, it just nukes. So it just needs to do chip damage on basically the whole team and it just wins right there. I'll give this one a strong no. I'll give this a light 10.
Oh, we're first
Oh, wow.
10.
Light 10.
Wow.
Yeah, the recovery, the passive
Fantastic.
recovery with the Mienshao goes crazy.
Regen is tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, and plus, you also get court change from Cinderace, and you got spin blocker
Yeah.
with Shinsta.
Oh, yeah.
So
That
not
is
only do you
true.
get
And it
spin blocker
says-
with Shinsta, but you
Yeah.
also have support with Strength Step.
So yeah, a lot of games he might not even need to run Boots Chin Pao because he could probably rely on his Hyler control so pretty easily, you know.
This is a
Yeah.
threatening team.
Yum.
Light, give it a light 10.
All right, and we'll
Brunel,
go from a
why are you
very
so good at
threatening
Pokemon?
team to
To our favorite, to the people's
Got
champion.
skipped.
the most flavorful. Oh, but did we skip you again?
That's okay. Keep going.
No, go ahead. Give us your thought.
No. I mean, for my team,
Oh.
on the dock, but we're going in dock order.
Am I going? No.
did we-
Dock order has Howl right after Crummel.
Yeah,
This is fine. We'll get to me eventually. Let's do it.
yeah, you're right. You're right.
I
after that.
have a lot of thoughts on this team, so this is good.
So this is the most flavorful team that we've got in this season. The coach has been very well known to be a big fan of ice types, so
As
this
you can
is
see.
not a surprise that this is the team that's been drafted. I feel like if you were gonna mono anything, ice is a very risky one. Like
This team,
I
got thoughts.
because okay, so obviously this team, has just looking at this team across the board, and you see more red on the overall weaknesses than you see green.
12. Yeah.
This is not a team that's meant to take a lot of hits. However, ice is one of the best types offensively. So this team's really going to need to utilize that. I think the secrets of this team are going to lie in the Terra Captains. Because
I think the secrets of this team are gonna lie in cheese stretch.
well, that too.
No
It's
way,
gonna rely on
I'll tell
blizzard
you the
freezes.
So here's the thing: is the biggest thing that people were saying about ice types going to Gen 9 is that they got the hugest nerf possible, which is being able to not be an ice type. So I feel like the strength of this team is going to rely around the Terra Caps. I feel like Frostmoth is a huge Terra Cap. Having a Quiver Dance Terra Captain is, as you know, one of the strongest things on this team, I feel.
Yep.
Having or what was the caps for that again? Bug, water, flying. Yeah. So being able to Terra Water this thing is going to be able to take away 90% of the weaknesses.
Yep.
Arctozolt being able to go pure electric is going to be amazing, because with Slush Rush, this thing is going to be able to hit like a truck. And
even ground, yeah.
But the thing is, you're not going to want to bring a lot of ground types to this, because ground gets bodied by everything here.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of, I feel like Howl's ingenuity here is with the Terra Caps. With Frostmoth and Arctozolt, he's actually creating ways to utilize the ice types to his advantage, while also trying to minimize those weaknesses from it. Because obviously, like, this theme's got the big issue of, you know, every single mon essentially is weak to rocks. So if you put rocks up against this team, you're gonna, like, most everything's going to hurt from it.
Yep, you're getting like 100%, 125% at least total damage across the board, unless he's running boots everything.
Exactly, and if you're running boots on everything, you lose a lot of damage potential, and a lot of utility with everything else.
Yeah, this team relies really heavily on Cryogonal to come every week and be a spinner, because you know they're going to be setting up rocks first thing.
I feel
that
like it's not always going to be Cryogonal. I feel like Cloyster, you'll see, is going to come to a lot more matches than you'd expect.
Delibird.
So
that plays into some of my strong feelings about this team.
Okay, go ahead. Go off, Gray. Let's hear it.
I really, okay, look, obviously there are going to be some teams in the league that just have certain mons that are going to be really, really good matchups into this team. Steel types, fighting types, fire types, etc. are going to go off, but this team, as you have very strong immediate physical wall breaking ability, you have decent to mid special wall breaking ability, as if this team is built every week as hyper offense, like we're gonna lead Frostlass, we're gonna set up spikes, we're going to Spell Smash with Cloyster, we're gonna use booster speed, Iron Bundle, like it's gonna be really hard for some teams to stack up to the offensive pressure that this is gonna be able to put up. I actually think that as far as Terra Captains go, Frostmoth works really well, but something like Cloyster, which is able to Shell Smash with that 180 defense stat, like that wins a lot of games right there. People just aren't prepared for that. I think this team is going to be really scary to face up against, even if you have a strong. Like I have Mega Metagross for a little spoiler going ahead, and if I have to play this team, even with a Metagross, I'm sitting there, I'm looking at a Mamoswine holding the Scarf, I'm looking at a Iron Bundle,
Scarf Darmanitan,
and Hydro Pump. Look at a Scarf Darmanitan. Yeah, exactly. That thing gets Flare Blitz. This team is going to be obviously hyper offense to the max, but I honestly think that despite it being monotype, it's going to be really, really successful with that, especially someone like Kyurem. It's like a mixed attacker. You're going to have to guess, every week what they're going to be bringing with that. This is scary. And all obviously Veil support is a thing. So that completes my thoughts.
Yeah, I think you're spot on, Gray. That it's really hard to weather the offensive pressure of this team. Because I mean, how many ice resist is every team gonna have? Maybe 3, maybe 4.
Yeah, I personally have less than that.
Yeah, and it's this team could very easily overwhelm, between Bundle, Ice Beam, Hydro Pumps, Darmanitan, and Mamoswine Icicle Crash, Kyurem, Earth Power, Arctozolt, Terra Ground, Stomping. Like, there's a lot of options to overwhelm those checks. And the speed is pretty good on this team, between Iron Bundle being super fast, Darmanitan being probably the best Scarf Mon in the game, maybe second best. Genesect is allowed in this draft.
Yeah.
You know, like it's gonna be really hard. One thing that we do have to mention is no Alolan Ninetales. You know, unfortunately, Aurorus is gonna have to be the health setter here. And if you have Aurorus, you're probably gonna have to tear out of the hyping, because Rock Ice is so bad and Aurorus is really slow. You know, Alolan Ninetales getting sniped from Hal, that definitely sets this team back. But
yeah, if you want to be able to keep,
I'm scared of this team.
If you want to be able to keep, you know, hail or snow up for more than one round, you have to Terra this thing, because you're never getting a veil off with this team. You're never getting a veil off without it this Aurorus being threatened by one of the multitude of ice weaknesses. Because
Right.
a lot of the same ice weaknesses are also the rock weaknesses. So this thing's going to, like, this Aurorus is going to be threatened by existing.
Pretty much, yeah.
Though something we do need to, that needs to be considered is, because if Snow is able to be kept up, the entire team here is going to be a little bit more bulky than on paper.
On the physical side, right?
Yep.
Because of that, I do think that that's a good buff for this team. However, as scary as this team has the potential on being, it's going to be incredibly matchup dependent. Because if a certain team comes in and it just has good options to be able to handle, you know, the few threats that the rest of the team can't, the whole team's going to fall apart. The whole team is going to be hinging on the few mons that are able to circumvent the problems of being an ice type. Which is why I had initially brought up the whole Terra type in the first place. But, you know, also, you know, Iron Bundle, having Freeze Drive, being able to break through bulky water types and stuff
Same
like
with
that.
Kyurem. Yeah.
And with with Kyurem as well.
There's one minute thing that I think is worth mentioning, specifically when it comes to using Iron Bundle. Most of the good priority in the game is physical. It's pretty rare that you see special priority, and Iron Bundle benefits from that a lot. There's a lot of good priority in this league, and personally, I could, you know, kiss my match goodbye if I saw Vacuum Wave, but if it's Sucker Punch, you got a chance. So
Sucker Punch, Bullet Punch, Mach Punch, all those are physical, you're right.
So where are we thinking about putting this one?
So, I mean, obviously,
but I think it's
mono. It's mono ice, and it's Howl. It's got to go in its own tier. Underneath bottom 4, there needs to be a Howl tier.
I love the jokes for that.
I don't think this is the bottom team.
I don't think it's the bottom team, but I do think it's bottom 4.
It's bottom 4, but I think that there's a team that respectfully is not as good, and also there is a good reason for it to be not as good that has literally nothing to do with the coach. So
that's
I think it has to go in the Absolutionists. Out of memes, I'd make a Howl tier, you know. It's Howl.
I mean, we all know in our hearts that it belongs in its own, you know, tier, 10 tiers below anyone else. But
I mean, obviously, this is the greatest team ever assembled. Look at the aura, the cojones to pull up with mono ice against the Magirna and a mega Metagross.
All right, let's get a few words from our expert JT.
Yeah, I think you're underestimating Hal and Ice types. He's been doing this thing for damn near a decade now, doing mono ice. Experience goes crazy, wall pickers go crazy. Got one of the best setup moves in 2 Quiver Dance and Cell Smash. You got to be careful because this guy is threat. Got 4 wall breakers, mono ice. That's his deal. This is a strong 8. coach
Thank
experience.
you.
Coach
Thank you.
experience is carrying as well.
And I think that's
Yes,
a big part
sir.
of why the team itself goes in the bottom 4, because I do feel like the pilot of this is going, or has the opportunity to really extend what little is here. And I think that's going to be a
Really
big
like
determining
Iron
factor
Dragon
on,
and Auroras.
yeah. But, you know, the team, if we're just looking at the team itself, which is what these PRs are, the team itself feels bottom 4.
Yeah, Hal's got to play perfect pretty much every game if he really wants to be in there. If he makes a mistake, then it's going to be really hard for him to come back. Yeah.
Yeah, if one mistake and one thing goes down that he needs to keep up, and the whole team falls apart. That's, and I mean, honestly, I feel like that's almost poetic because it's a frailty to this team, which
Ice.
makes sense with the ice. One small mistake and the whole thing comes crumbling down. But moving on from the North Pole, we go to Gray's team, the Blackthorn Crashers. I hate this team mainly because you sniped the Metagross from me. Because I wanted to use the Metagross this season. But with Metagross, Gliscor, Primarina, Overquill, Terra Entei, which I really, really like. The Mandibuzz, Bellybolt, Hawlucha, Inteleon, Brambleghast, Runagrigus, and Chatot. I really do like this team. I do. I think this team is incredible. I think this team's got a lot going for it. I'm really curious to see how well Metagross fares, because it's very rare to actually see Metagross outside of like an Uber's draft. And I don't know why this thing has a base 110 speed.
It's messed up.
A little bit, yeah.
Either.
If we're looking at it, the team on its own is a little bit slower than the teams we've seen so far. With it maxing out at 120, it really comes in under what a lot of the other teams are able to max out on. And I feel like that's going to be potentially a problem with no webs user. Yeah, I feel like this team's going to have a lot of moments where you're gonna be looking at the board, you're gonna be looking at the state of the battle and being like, if only I was faster in this one instant, the whole thing would have, toppled over.
Yeah, the speed on this team relative to other teams can be pretty low. The speed tiers are still really good. It's just we have some demons in our league that are running around. Another thing is there's really not much setup. Like you have SD, Gliscor, and Hawlucha. And I guess Overquill can also run Sword Dance. But it's not like you have a great Dragon Dancer or a great Quiver Dancer or anything of that sort. I think Gray drafted a really balanced team, and he has so much options and utility. Like every Pokemon other than Chatot has a reason to come pretty much every week. But I think it kind of runs into similar problems or not a problem, but similar things that we've seen with other teams where it just feels a little too honest comparatively.
The problem is, comparatively, it feels like a Swiss Army knife. It does. It feels like it's going to come in with potential to be able to do anything in any situation, but it's a jack of all trades where it's going to do everything a little well, but nothing extremely well. And I feel like compared to some of the other balanced teams that we've seen so far, this just feels a little underwhelming across the board. Because, I mean, aside from Metagross, there's nothing here that really, terrifies me other than, Terra Normal Entei. Because those extreme speeds are going to be a problem. And that, I feel like just every piece that I'm looking at here, it doesn't feel like it comes together,
I think everything comes together really well here. This is a team that I would love to use because there's so much utility between so many different Pokemon. I mean, Gliscor is the best status absorber in the game.
Oh,
Overquill is a great spiker. Mandibuzz is one of the better defoggers. Bellybolt can wall. Brambleghast can spin and set hazards. And even the Runerigus, like, that thing can put in some work with its Terra types. I think he did great with Dragon and Water. Primarina is a great pivot and can wall break. You know, Primarina can run a good AV set, can run a good Calm Mind Draining Kiss set, Throat Spray. You know, I think, like, Gray just has so many options. But other than Mega Metagross, and even then Mega Metagross can relatively be handled compared to some of the other Pokemon we're allowing in our league.
Right. I mean, the thing with Metagross too is, and this is a big thing with this team, is a lot of your biggest hitters here are going to be physical. With aside from Primarina and Inteleon, which is the primary special attackers, everything else here is physical. So if you get a fast mon that has the capability of spreading Will-O-Wisp, because even Entei is possibly going to be able to get hit with Will-O-Wisp because of if it's Terra. If it Terra's normal, it gets hit by a Will-O-Wisp.
Team is pretty status weak. Oh, he does have Gliscor, which it's like, hey, you want to run Wisp? I'm just gonna switch in Gliscor.
I mean, that's fair, but you know, one stray Will-O-Wisp hitting Metagross knocks it out. It's not doing anything. If Metagross gets a burn on it, it's not doing anything. Don't sleep on Metagross special attack. It's actually decent. But you need to have it.
But I'm gonna let you guys talk this out first.
But the thing is though, is you need to have it actually come prepared for that special end of it. Like if you have it just come 100% as a special attacker and someone burns it thinking that they've got the advantage, and all of a sudden you're dropping, you know, earth powers and flash cannons and, you know, psychics, sure, you're gonna, like, it's definitely, like, I'm not saying that it doesn't have that capability.
You live with it. If Metagross is deciding to run special, you live with it compared to Tough Claws, Meteor Mash, and Psychic Fang.
Coming off of a base 145 attack stat, like, that feels a lot more manageable. So even if it does come, I'm not like losing my mind over it, you know. But if it's a physical Metagross and it catches a burn, that's a problem.
Yeah, I think Gray's team is absolutely championship. Like, this is a championship caliber team, but it really depends on, you know, Gray piloting the team well. Some of the other teams we've seen, the top four, the teams we placed in top four, they have Pokemon where you're scared to face them. There's not a particular Pokemon on this team that I would say I'm scared to face. He has threats that I definitely have to keep in mind, but nothing that I'm like, oh, I have to face that this week. This sucks.
Right. I definitely think that it's a decent team. I'm not going to, say that it's not. It's got great hazards, a great removal, spin blocking. It's got great pivoting. There's a lot going well with it. It just doesn't have that oomph, you know? Like, it can, like I said, it's going to be able to do a lot of things relatively well, but I feel like this team's going to have problems finishing things off if the early to mid game doesn't go well.
Great. Do you want to chime in on your build?
Yes. I think you guys made some great points, though, for the record. That being said, my whole draft, really, the plan, I think, was to build around, obviously, Mega Metagross. What are its main weaknesses? Okay, its main weaknesses are ground types, fire types, dark types, ghost types. So if you look at my next three picks after that, Gliscor is going to cover those ground types, Primarina covers those fire types, and Overquill will get those dark and ghost types. So I think that my type coverage is really strong. So I feel really good about that. And as far as the speed tiers go, I felt comfortable with 120 being my top speed tier, simply because Entei which is a mon that I'm really comfortable using generally. First I was able to use it with Terra. I managed to grab a lot of kills with it. I really like Entei. I think it works as a physical or special attacker. But at the extreme speed Terra Normal is a really powerful tool. At every single match that I go into is going to be able to pop off that speed tier no matter what they are, whether I'm facing, a Regieleki or anything else. I'll be able to guarantee that speed tier with the extreme speed. So honestly, a lot of the strategy with this team comes down to finding really good pivots, which I think I did find with Mandbuzz and Prim and Billy Bolt. All of them take hits really well and can all pivot out with different type swapping moves into those wall breakers. I think, honestly, you guys are underrating Entei a little bit as a wall breaker. There's very little that takes a hit, and the things that resist it, half of them don't want to get burned by Sacred Fire.
I think it's less that we're underrating the Entei itself, but I mean, you're based the team around Metagross, which is already an amazing wall breaker. So it's essentially like putting two amazing wall breakers together. Entei is amazing, don't get me wrong. But next to Metagross, it's it's still good, but it doesn't strike the same level of fear as we've seen in like the top fours,
I think a lot of this team for me comes down to comfortability. Like Entei and Inteleon, I'm really comfortable using, especially as Terra Caps. And Hawlucha is another one that I'm really feeling good about the speed tier with because it's an unburdened mon. And so I feel really strong about this team. I think it's really good. Yeah. I think I have every piece that I would need to face up against any team. That's my soapbox moment for it. But obviously, there are going to be gaps in it. So,
no, I agree with Greg. I think he does have every a piece. He does have pieces that he would need for every team. This is a team that I would draft. Like, this is a Geo team. This would get a 10 from me personally. I think it's got everything you would want, other than a mon over 110 speed. That's the only thing. But you do have some priority with Metagross and Entei to supplement that. There's not really a good Scarf mon on the team. And Hawlucha can be pretty weak without a boost. I guess Hawlucha does go over 110 speed.
I will say, personally, I feel like Scarf is kind of a crutch when it comes to team building. I don't generally like.
It is important, though. It is important still, because it allows you opportunity to make some riskier plays. If something sets up, hey, I got it covered. I have something in the back that I can fall back on, so I can make a double if I want to. I think for our power rankings, I would probably put it in top 8. I'd probably put it above Void's team. My bias puts it below mine, but I'll let that for you guys to decide.
Admittedly, I understand the strengths of this team. However, I feel like it's too I feel like it's
doesn't scare you as
much. You gotta remember a lot of the things that you said that were being said that were meant to boost the team were comfort, mons that you're comfortable with, that may not by themselves just on paper be good. Because this team definitely, like you said, this team screams familiarity. This is a team of mons that you're used to, that you're good with. But as a team, if anybody was just picking this up, I question how successful they'd be with it.
Okay.
Would you where would you put it then, dude?
Yeah, what do you think? I think you're the deciding factor here.
I am torn. I feel like it's hovering between bottom 8, top 8.
I think for our list as it is now,
That's fine.
I'd move your team to the top of bottom 8, and I'd put Gray's team. I'd put Gray's team over Void's, but if you want to put it under Void's, I'm okay with that too.
No, I feel that's fair. Like Void's team is a great, like I said, Void's team is a very great glass cannon hit and run style strat.
With all the pivoting and everything, yeah.
Right, but I mean, I do feel like there's a certain level of stability with Gray's team. It just.
You think that the too honest thing that Gio said about his team, I think with mine that's a big factor. It's a very honest team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I have one. I think Gliscor is my highest rated, other than Mega Metagross.
You know what's crazy with our league is that I have Kieran Black and you have Mega Metagross, and we're like too honest.
Right.
Great balance, Gio. Good job.
Yeah.
All right, and from our expert JT, what do you think about the Blackthorn Crashers?
Okay, so I don't want to say too much. I think there's a plan. It's totally repeatable every week. I think you guys are underselling Metagross. This team is tailor-made fully to support Mega Metagross. This team is a light 9. You guys are underselling it, I think. There's a plan. There's a vision. I see it. Like I said, I don't want to say too much. I don't want to say too much. You guys are forgetting things that you guys can't see right now. Light
Thank
10.
you.
Light 9. Light 9. You guys, you may not see it week 1. You might not see it week 2, but at a certain point when it pops, it's gonna happen over and over again.
AJT, I gave this a Geo stamp of approval with a 10.
All right,
Yeah, but what does Gio know? Gio doesn't know anything.
Yeah.
Amen.
Let's move on. Next team that we've got to look at is the Melbourne Melmetals.
Number 1
team.
Number 1.
Bottom 4 trader team.
All right, so Zamazenta, Dragapult, Terrazarude, Mew, Klefki, Minior Meteor, Xurkitree, Tentacruel, Tinglu, and Terraradicate. I mean, honestly, the Terraradicate means that this has got to be, number 1 team of all time.
This has my personal opinion of being the best team in the league. It is a little top heavy, in the same way that Conrad's team was, but oh my god, the top is so good. Zamazenta is great. The speed tier is amazing. He has Dragapult, which Dragapult round 2, like, come on now. Zarude, allowing that to Terra was definitely a mistake. I was not familiar with your game, sir. Mew can do whatever it wants. Klefki can stop any setup it wants. Tentacruel for hazards. Tinglu is annoying to deal with. Around the edges with Xurkitree, Raticate, and Meteor, it is kind of like, they're not really the best Mons. But those guys can still do things in, certain matchups and can still be threatening Pokemon. This has I've played my week 1 match against Zappa early, and I've started prepping for this team, and it is such a headache to deal with.
This is the best team, I think.
This has my mark for number 1. I would like to hear your guys' thoughts on this one.
Oh, I agree with you. I think that this has everything. It's fast. It hits hard. It's annoying. I mean, it's got Tinglu and Zamazenta and Dragapult. Like, you don't really have to convince me of anything else after I hear those 3. And he sniped me on Xurkitree, for the record. So,
Yeah, I do like this team. This team is absolutely fantastic. There's no one that's going to be able to say that this team isn't going to be able to put incredible amounts of pressure out. It's one of the fastest base teams in the league. Base of 101 speed is one of the highest in this league, so it's going to be hard to keep up with this team. And with a base 99 attack, this team's going to hit hard just as well.
Yeah.
The difference, unlike Void's team, is that this doesn't really feel super squishy in exchange for being fast and hitting hard. With
Exactly.
Tentacruel and Ting Lu, and Klefki, there's some decent defensive options across the board here between Klefki's ability to put up screens and Tentacruel and Ting Lu both being incredibly defensive mons. And I mean, both of them, they're both on the special defensive side, but then we've got Zamazenta, who covers the physical side relatively well.
And Mew can do whatever it wants.
Yeah, and Mew can come 1 week, I mean, that's the thing though. Whenever you're looking at a team that's got a Mew on it, you have to be very impartial with it, because yes, it can do anything, but it needs to come, if it's going to come, it needs to do the right thing each week. And a lot of times, it just can't or doesn't. Or it comes as the wrong thing, pigeonholes the team into the wrong mentality, and where if you see like a Scarf Mew or a Scarf fast pivot Mew 1 week, the team loses because it really needed an extra set of utility hands to back up Klefki.
Yeah.
Like with Mew, it's very hit or miss, simply because of the fact that, yes, it can do everything, but that doesn't mean it's going to do everything.
And to your point with that, dude, with Mew, that's probably his most reliable defogger or hazard removal, but it's not going to want to do that every week.
Right. And if it's coming as that means you're pigeonholing Mew into that kind of defensive role, which means that, a lot of your opponents will just see Mew and be like, all right, that's got to be his primary way of removing these hazards.
Yep.
I mean, don't get me wrong, the hazards aren't going to affect him that much because he doesn't really have many things that are weak to rock. He's got a great number of resistances to it. But at the same time, this team, if it goes too long, that chip damage can add up. Because, there's no wish support, there's no ability to really heal on this team. So
yeah, that is one thing. Even though he doesn't have great hazard support, his team's not really weak to hazards. Stealth Rock doesn't really matter that much for him. Toxic Spikes, he does have Tentacruel to absorb those. The only thing is, if there's a team that can reliably set up spikes versus him, that can definitely be an issue. Because other than Mew, Tentacruel is not a very reliable rapid spinner. From my experience, I've drafted it before, and it struggles because, it's not really a threat. And Klefki doesn't really want to defog because Klefki wants to set up its own spikes and hazards and that sort.
If you're taking a turn to click defog on Klefki, that's a turn that you're not advancing yourself, which is really bad for Klefki.
Can also be blocked by dark types too, since Klefki's prankster.
Yep.
That's kind of nitpicking with this team if that's really its only major weakness. And that kind of just goes to show you, Amzo really drafted and built a great team here.
I'm calling it. I want to see Amzer get a Fear Eradicate KO. I don't care how it happens. I want to see it happen once.
Week 1, do it. No balls.
Oh, but
He already did his week 1 match and lost.
He played lucky already.
Wow.
Yeah, and he lost because it's a trash team piloted by a traitor.
Honestly, I do think that this team has a lot of power behind it. The thing that I find is that you're not going to have... this team struggles with coverage. Zaru, Dragapult, and Zamazenta being the high end here mean that you're not really going to be able to find, for the team that's got the Scizor on it, a good, reliable fire type move would be fantastic, but your only real option for that is going to be Dragapult Flamethrower. But
it's Fire Blast too.
But you're going to see that a mile away.
Yeah, it is kind of easy to read.
This team feels like it's going to be easy to... Yeah, it's going to be easy to read. It's powerful, but it's powerful in the way as, heavy hitters are in fighting games. If you get hit with it, you're going to, go reeling. But the attacks are going to be... feel like they're going to be relatively well telegraphed. The points where there aren't going to be a lot of, pressure put up are going to be very telegraphed. Once Klefki comes out, you're almost going to be expecting 2 turns of, screen, Thunderwave, pass. So that creates openings for manipulation, putting wedges in this team in order to be able to push forward and get the kind of advantages that will make a team fall like this. Which I think that's the biggest weakness here, is just not having the kind of offensive coverage that you need. And that's where Mew's, again, this is where Mew's going to come in handy, because Mew has that kind of offensive coverage.
Yeah.
But if you're pigeonholing it into Defog, you're not really going to be able to bring that coverage every week. And if you do, you're going to be sacrificing one of your best hazard removers, aside from Tentacruel. But, the problem is that Tentacruel and Ting-Lu both don't really have great recovery options.
They're pretty much non-existent other than rest,
Yeah, which means that, the defense, every time you swap into one of those defensive mons, it's going to be taking chip that you can't come back from. Or it's going to come back from very slowly with, like, Black Sludge or leftovers. It's negligible. So I feel like that's going to be the big thing. This feels like the same, almost like a similar thing that I said with Howl's team. It's going to be very matchup dependent. On matches where you don't need that kind of coverage, you're going to be fine. If it's in your wheelhouse, a team that, Zamazenta can just body press his way through, Dragapult can just, Dragon Darts, Dracos, Zarude can just come in and, knockoffs, stuff like that. The team's going to do it fantastic. But for teams that don't immediately fall to Zamazenta, Dragapult, Zarude, I feel like it's gonna have a hard time trying to find the extra damage to get ahead.
I agree with that. I could see I don't think we have any really bulky teams in our league, but this team does definitely have the potential to be stalled out. Because other than Zarude, there's not really a great boosting mon. Like Dragapult can Dragon Dance, but if you have a pretty reliable check, it's not going to be too crazy. And same with Mew, 100 attack across the board, isn't the strongest. I don't think we have any more stall-oriented teams, but, this team could be outstalled.
But the thing is, we may not have any stall-oriented teams, but we do have a lot of teams with good defensive cores. And I think those good defensive cores might be able to weather this well, and that really puts this team in a bind.
Great. You want to chime in?
I think that this team is going to spend a lot of time using like one or two mons like Ting-Lu to take hits, and the rest of the time it's just going to be really annoying. This is the best team, I think.
I disagree that it's the best team. I honestly think that Crumbles is better here, mainly because, like I said, this team is, this is a Falcon Punch team. This team is going to hurt you if you let it hit you. But, you're going to be able to see what's coming a mile away, and you're going to be able to easily prepare for, all right, well, there's the Clef Key. Time to, he's going to set up once, but he's going to set up one, he's going to set up another. He might go for a Thunder Wave on the mon that I've got out. So, bring something, if it's got, a Thunder Wave to eat a turn, or if it's got like a Lumberry to eat a turn on it. There's easy ways to exploit the moments on this team that aren't providing pressure. So I think it falls in between Crumbles team and the LA Slowkings.
One thing I do want to bring up too is I think Zarude is probably the best Terra mon we have in our league. I don't think any mon comes close to Zarude's ability and potential as a Terra mon. I kind of messed up. I was not familiar with its game as a Terra mon. That thing is nasty. With bulk up, 105 defenses, Trailblaze, that thing definitely has the ability to snowball. And even though Ams lost his first week game, Zarude, had he had recovery on it, could have pulled it out and pretty much soloed. So
that's fair. All right, and last words from our resident expert.
Can you pull up the team again?
There you go.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, cool. Let's see here. Okay, yeah. So not a lot to say. Pivot game strong. 2 of the draft goats in Mew and Dragapult. Hits like a freaking truck. It's up there with Grumel. The team, I feel like it's centered around. Well, not centered. It's built to support Zamazenta in a way. All it has to do is just punch holes. This is a light 10.
Nice.
All right.
So are we feeling this above or below Krumel?
Honestly, I would put it below. I would put it myself below Crummel. I feel like Crummel's team is just
Hearing these arguments slightly below. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean Krumel's team, he does have. I think Krumel, other than Ting Lu, has probably more overall bulk. Altaria, Terapagos, Vaporeon, Gligar, Sinistra, Regen, Mianshao, like that's a lot of bulk. And with Am's team, it's Ting Lu, Zamazenta can eat a couple of hits, and Mew if he wants to go for that. So, I think that's fair. Number 2.
Yeah, all right. Sounds good to me. Oh, where am I going? There we go. All right, so let's move on to our next team then, which is the Santalune City Scythers. All right. I love this team because I have always been partial to Skyman. I love Skyman. I love seeing Skyman available. So seeing Skyman taken is fantastic. Being paired with Iron Treads, Zeraora, Milotic, Terra Hydrapple, Mega Sharpedo, Gengar, Terra Comfey, Lycanroc Dusk, and Volbeat. All right. This team has a lot of potential to just scare people.
Really good speed tiers, right?
Oh, yeah. Top with 143 with Zeraora.
127, 110. Yeah, that's great.
And it even has, the Hydrapple on bottom end, so it's not just Trick Room bait either. So it's actually got some good things on both ends to be able to keep it going, which I really do like.
The hazard game is decent too. I think Gengar gets T-Spikes. Lycanroc and Iron Treads can kind of share rock duties also. And Volbeat, is a screens merchant. The one thing I will say is, as cool as Skyman is, Covert Cloak can really shut it down.
Here's the thing with that though. I've played with Skyman before in another league, and yeah, essentially. But see, here's the thing: is like you're dedicating items to specifically to counter one Pokemon, and it doesn't even do a good job at that because you got to remember that Skyman still hits like a truck. Base 120 special attack, it doesn't need to care every week about getting the flinch spam. Getting blasted with a seed burst, even without the special defense drop, is still going to chunk mons. On top of the fact, it's got some good coverage moves to be able to hem things that normally wouldn't that think that it can stand in front of Shaman. Shaman Sky is really powerful. It doesn't need to just be a flinch machine, which a lot of people just look at it and think that it is.
Yeah, I guess it's not necessarily a flinch merchant. Earth Power and Dazzling Gleam are pretty huge coverage points for it. And the speed is really difficult to deal with. It's faster than things like Greninja and Cinderace. I think it's probably the 3rd or 4th fastest offensive mon we have in our league.
Yep. And it has baton pass too, really so being able to have any kind of pivoting ability is fantastic. I think that Shaman Sky gets pigeonholed into this flinch merchant, as you were saying, but
yeah,
and then they just get blasted out of nowhere because this flinch merchant has cannons.
Okay.
My thing with that I really don't care for with this team is so obvious, like, I'm not a fan of Mega Sharpedo. I don't know why. It's not that great to me. Like, sure, water dark typing, good typing, it's got decent speed. It just doesn't feel like it's got a lot going for me to warrant the mega slot, you know? And without Mega Sharpedo, your only real physical answer is Zeraora. Which means that you're going to be, this team will have a hard time if the opponent just brings a shit ton of AVs.
Well, Lycanroc is also very good. Physical Mon too. Iron Treads can do it too, yeah.
Yeah.
Gray said he has to go soon, so do you want to share your thoughts?
Sure. This is a really strong balanced team. I think the speed tiers are really good. Personally, I really like them. I think this team will struggle with really powerful special attackers into it. Milotic is going to have to do a lot of heavy lifting as far as defensive backbone goes. But, I mean, everything towards the top has decent pivoting, is really strong. I think Shaman Sky is supported pretty well by this team. I really like it. I also think there's some tricky niches that we're not seeing here due to Baton Pass, etc. I think those are some things that are going to make this team pretty good in the right hands.
That's fair.
One thing I do want to say is that there are some weakness overlaps, between Shaman, Hydrapool, Iron Tread, Zeraora, Lycanroc. Like, he has some pretty common and similar weaknesses on some of his Pokemon, particularly Ice. Milotic is the only real Ice resist, so it kind of goes with what Gray was saying, that Milotic is going to have to do some heavy lifting on the team. I think JT has a really solid core. I'm kind of feeling probably the middle of bottom 8 for his team.
I think the biggest thing here the biggest boon that we have to remember here for this team is, while we were saying that Zarude is the best Terramon, I have to disagree.
Okay.
Comfey is one of the best Terramons in Pokemon draft leagues.
Yeah, Comfey is really strong.
Being able to have priority with Giga Drain and priority Draining Kiss means that this thing is a terrifying sweeper, because it doesn't need to invest in speed. So all it needs to do is, if you just go straight defense, build this thing, HP and physical or special defense, put nothing in the special attack, and you just sit there and you calm mind up while you just sit there and tank. You can tank, like, or what are the Terra types on the Comfey? Fairy and Ground. Ground type is an amazing Terra type for this.
I disagree that Comfey is a better Terra captain than Zarude. I think Comfey has better snowball potential, potentially. But its stats kind of let it down. Like, I think I don't know what Comfey's highest stat is, but I know its special attack is under 100. At least I'm pretty sure of that.
Here's the thing:
so at first, especially if you're uninvested, like, you're not really hitting for much, and you kind of have to get the turn right in order to get the setup to where you are able to do, big damage and snowball from there. Whereas Zarude got 120 attack and can just click knockoff and power whip.
Right, but I mean, I think you're looking at these as two different style attackers. Like, Zarude is, wall breaker, comes out, immediately just bashes something down, where Comfey is that late game sweeper. Because, sure, Comfey is going to need those Calm Minds, but with base 90 defense, base 110 special defense, it's going to be able to tank a lot of things. plus that longevity with, you know, the whole core of this thing basing around healing itself, it's going to be hard to knock this thing out if you allow it to get set up. Like,
it's a good mon for sure.
So, I mean, I'll take the argument one way or the other that or which one is the better Terra, but Comfey gets very reliably Terra banned in a lot of leagues that I've seen.
Interesting.
Because of how strong it actually is.
Well, Zarude always gets banned. There's almost never, even Uber's leagues will ban Zarude.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Zarude will also usually get Terra banned because its point value will be higher. It normally won't be in the point range to be able to Terra anyways.
Even in leagues where, like, I'm in a Terra tax league that allows higher point Terras and it still bans Zarude.
Yeah, Zarude. That was a mistake.
Zarude and Hydrapple get consistently banned as Terra caps, I think, way more frequently than Comfy does.
Yeah.
Although I would agree that, like, Hydrapple is arguably better than Zarude because of Regenerator.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Hydrapple with regen is definitely, definitely can be a problem. Dragonfire is really good coverage too on it, with Earth Power also to round it out.
I think you guys will be surprised if JT is able to run Comfey well. I feel like you guys will be surprised with how threatening this thing will be. But for placing wise,
Volbeat also gets Nasty Plot.
Nasty Pass.
That is true.
Yeah, okay.
Then that is
It's a
terrifying. All right, so we're thinking bottom 8, right?
Yeah, I think the team has a lot of really good points, but I think that you got to get a lot of turns right in order to really capitalize on it. So I think right under you is fair.
Yeah, I agree with that.
JT, you want to let us know how we did your team?
Yeah, solid points. No complaints. Give it a light 7. I'm also getting tired. I'm going to go off to bed. But I couldn't make it to Lucky's team. He is the only one that gets a decent 10.
The only other 10 we get is Lucky.
That's the highest ranking one.
Decent. Everything else has been light 10s.
Yeah, I think we had a light 10 with Ams's team, I think.
Krumel had a light 10.
Krumel. Yeah, Krumel.
Yep.
Yeah, Lucky gets a decent 10. He gets the number 1 team from me.
All right. Well, spoilers there.
All right.
Thank you, JT.
Let's move on to our next team, which is the Columbus Alley Cats from Jarvisator. Greninja, Mega Scizor, Clefable, Raging Bolt, Terra Superior, and Terra Hisuian Typhlosion. Okay, that's going to be incredible. Thankfully,
his Terra Captains are great.
Oh, 100%. His Terra Captains are just meant to click the funny button and do the damage. I love them. Thankfully, we've been spared the pain of dealing with Stella Terra Superior, because I don't know if you guys know this or not, but if a Stella Terra type uses Terra Blast, it actually reduces your special attack stat 1 stage.
Wow.
So yeah, I didn't know that because I've used Terra Superior before.
Stella Terra Superior has the ability to not only just use
Leaf Storm,
but to use Terra Blast in order to buff itself, which is insane. Thankfully, we've been spared that for now, so
I'll take that. Grace is that his Terra Captains only have 2 types, so we for our sakes we got lucky on that end.
I would say that this team has, I think, what is probably one of the best teams. I think Greninja's holding it back, though. I think it needs a better offensive, high-speed Pokemon.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree with Conrad there. Greninja is more of a snowball or a counter team pick, but in terms of a breaker itself, the best breaker on the team is either Raging Bolt or Superior, and Superior it still needs to set up in order to do, real meaningful damage. So I think in terms of punching holes, we're probably going to see a lot of booster special attack, Raging Bolt, clicking Draco Meteor to soften things up for his Greninja and for the Superior in the back.
I mean, don't discount, however, the Typhlosion Scarf or Spec Eruptions. That's going to punch holes in teams. Terrafire Specs Eruption is going to punch holes in teams it's going to make Chi-Yu jealous.
Yeah,
I agree. I just think it's too slow. I think my problem is that his fastest thing is Greninja, and Greninja's not the thing that's gonna like break things for his slow. Like Clefable is super good defensively, can set up. Raging Bolt can set up and is slow and defensive. Same thing with Serp. Like you have these like defensive setup on, so you want stuff. Like I think Mega Scizor is really good, but like other than Mega Scizor, you don't really have things that like chip super well on this team.
Yeah.
Okay.
And aside from Clefable and or Bronzong, your the hazard game on this team isn't exactly the greatest.
They're consistent though.
It is
Clefable will get that rocks up.
It is consistent. It will. I mean, you got to remember, Clefable is one of the biggest mons that suffers from 4-move syndrome.
True.
It's gonna want the Stealth Rocks, but it's gonna want the Wish. It's gonna want the Baton Pass. It's gonna want, Moonblast, so that it's not, taunt and setup fodder. It's not gonna be able to bring everything all at once, which means whatever doesn't get brought could potentially be a hole in the team.
One thing we haven't mentioned is that the pivot game on this team is great. Teleport Clefable, U-Torn Scizor and Greninja, Volt Switch Raging Bolt, and I think Bronzong gets teleport too, doesn't it?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, like that's, it's just kind of a little unfortunate that he doesn't have like a crazy hitter. He doesn't have a Mega Mawile or something of that nature to really just take advantage of it. But, I think Jarv can definitely position himself well in order to get his Battle Bond with Greninja, in order to get his Eruptions with Typhlosion, and Superior going. I think the ceiling on this team is really high, but comparatively to some of the other teams, the floor may be a little lower.
And that's what I think is what is really holding this team back. Is this is definitely, low, the lows are lows, but the highs are highs. And
yeah.
I don't like that because in something like draft, it's a lot of things are all about consistency.
Yeah.
And this team definitely doesn't feel consistent to me. It's going to come I feel like this team will probably have the most 6-0s either for or against it. Out of all the teams in the league, I feel like this is the one that's probably going to get to see the most 6-0s.
Well, Hal's gonna go. Hal might get 6-0 every week. Other than Hal, yeah.
But honestly, if we're ranking this one, and for Jarvis,
I think I'd put it at the bottom of top 8. I still think it's a really strong team, and he has a lot of really great options. I mean, Mega Scizor and Clefable, and Greninja, that's Sun and Moon staples right there. That's Sun Moon OU. Those guys are going to get the job done.
I mean, I agree with that. However, I don't think that Sun Moon OU staples are going to be enough in this format where we've got, Kyurem Black, where we've got Nagandel, where we've got Terra Zarude. I don't feel like that. I feel like this feels strong, but it feels like it's already been power crept.
I could see that.
I honestly feel like this hits.
What's his highest base attack? It's probably Raging Bolt, huh? Oh, I think Raging Bolt hits 137. Mega Scizor might hit 140, but Mega Scizor normally is offensive.
Yeah, Mega Scizor is 150.
Or defensive, I'm sorry.
Oh,
yeah.
And Mega Scizor is not going to be saying defensive all that often. So, I mean, the team is relatively frail outside of Bronzong, which is another one that doesn't have reliable recovery, so it's going to have to really benefit from the wishing. But here's the thing but if you're going from Clefable active, and wish support out to Bronzong, you lose a lot of pressure. Because then, you know, your opponent knows that, oh, there's still another turn before this Bronzong leaves and puts out something that's actually going to hit me. So in order to get that, you sacrifice a lot of forward momentum, which is probably going to cost games. Which, to me, puts that in the bottom 8.
I would put it in the bottom of top 8, but you know, if you feel strongly about it, I'm putting it closer to the top of maybe bottom 8, then I'm cool with that.
Like, I'm back and forth, you know, about where it sits compared to mine, to be honest, because like I feel like we could probably set it above mine. It's like, I don't think it's a bad team. I think it's, you know, it's high. Like, I think the highest being as high as they are give it, you know, that potential. But the lows being that low just feels like it has a lot of.
I guess when we compare it to your team, I'd probably put it right under. I think the Lopunnies Latios core is probably a little better.
Yeah.
But he does have a better defensive core. You know, Scizor Clef, like that's pretty elite. So I guess it's kind of, what do you prefer? Do you prefer a more stable backbone or more explosive offense?
Right.
I would call this team pivot stall.
I love that.
Pivot stall. That's great.
Oh man, all right, I love that.
All right, next up we're gonna have the PachiPiciu. I'm not even gonna attempt. We have Zappo's team next.
Zappo's monstrosity of a name. This is the Genesect team. I don't think that I didn't notice the little hat you gave Seviper there.
He asked me to give it, and I was like, "It's a pretty cool hat."
So this is the team that sniped the Alolan Ninetales from the Mono Ice team, and all it's really doing with it is Terra, Alolan Sandslash, and Aurora Veil. I personally, there we go. Personally, I'm not the biggest. Oh, nope, not that one. I'm not the biggest fan of this team.
I think it does have some problems. There's not really a good defensive backbone in the team. Like, you're really relying on Veil, and Suicune to get the job done. Umbreon can tank, but it's pretty exploitable because you really can only foul play and toxic with it.
And see, here's the biggest issue with the Umbreon is we've seen that a lot of the teams in this league have very good pivoting ability. And the most common pivot move is U-turn. Umbreon is weak to that. Umbreon is going to get chunked every time someone tries to pivot, and that's going to really hamper its ability to stay healthy and stay defensive, which is really going to hurt it.
There's also a lot of really strong steel types in our tier. And, you know, his main line of defense against that is a defensive Infernape or defensive Suicune, you know?
Yeah. Which I feel like they're just gonna, like, the overly aggressive hyper offensive teams are just gonna, it feels like it's just gonna chew this team up. Like, it's gonna go down swinging. It's gonna be able to take some mons down as it's going down, but it's gonna go down. It just feels like this team is trying to swing with the big boys and just doesn't come in the same weight class, you know? Because it's not that the team itself doesn't have good mons in it, because Genesect is amazing. Infernape is a staple and has been, and Suicune has the ability to just end shit. And Dugtrio's, you know, being did we allow Arena Trap? I forgot. Arena Trap is allowed, yeah?
Yeah, I think so.
Because if Arena Trap is allowed, then, you know, we're in a, like, it's one of the best revenge killers in the game. Because anything that's not, you know, flying or ghost is going to get stuck in front of this thing, and this thing can get easy kills because of that. So I don't think Zappo is ever going to be in a position where he gets 6-0'd. But I question this team's ability to, you know, keep up.
This team, I think every one of the individual pieces are really good.
Yeah.
But yeah, they don't feel like they work well together.
Yeah,
Like-
I don't really feel like this team like has. It almost feels like it's two different drafts that got stuck together.
Yeah, that's how I feel about it. And I think this team gets destroyed by dragon types. Because the lowly Ninetales is a fake fairy.
Yeah. I mean, the having two steel types kind of helps to mitigate that. But then again, it's also a low in Sandslash, which is going to be, you know, the Terra Captain. And
Yeah, but all good dragons get a good fire movement. I just feel like
yeah,
fire dragon just like, guys, it's gonna be rough.
and that's a big problem, especially since the Sandslash's Terra types are ice and grass. Not
Yeah.
having grass as the other Terra type feels problematic. Because, you know, the whole point of tearing out of Ice Steel is to get rid of, you know, the fire weakness, the fighting weakness. And by not getting rid of one of those, it just means that you're still going to get smacked down by one of those two. I feel like this is honestly one of the easiest bottom fours that we've seen. It's like, I'll love to see what this team can do with under Zappo's hands. But I just, it
Yeah, I think
feels
this is a team you
all over
can't
the
sleep
place.
on. Yeah, you can't sleep on this team, but it definitely can't. It's not going to destroy you. I would predict that this team is going to just not make playoffs.
Yeah, I can see that. But I honestly, and it's weird to say this, I feel like it's worse than Howl's team.
I don't know about that one.
Like, see,
team
here's
is
the thing: is
mono-line.
Howl actually does have a lot of great synergies coming together. Like the fact
Yeah,
that
it's like the opposite of Howl's team, where it's like a bunch of good mons that have no synergy versus a bunch of bad mons that have a lot of synergy.
yeah, and I feel like the synergy with that is going to matter a lot. Because in the end, like I said, like you guys were saying when we were talking about Howl's team, how many ice resists are you going to be able to bring?
I hear you, but like this team, I feel like it's going to be hard to prep for because a lot of these Pokemon, like individually, are problems, and they don't mesh together, so you can't like figure out it's not going to be as easy to figure out a counter play style.
Like, I get that, but
And
I don't...
Yon Umbreon is very good.
True. Yon Umbreon's not terrible. But I mean, I feel like you don't really need to, like... This feels like a team where, you know, you just bring your thing and do your thing. And this team just doesn't stop you.
I feel like this team is built around getting Suicune, arrest talk Suicune in every game.
Yeah, that definitely feels like it's definitely the strongest end game for this. Or, you know, like... Terra Dragon Choice Scarf Dragon Energy Regidraco.
But just imagine Suicune behind screens.
You know, I definitely don't think it's a bad thing. I just don't. I don't know. I'm willing to, if you guys think that it's better than Howl's, I'll put. We can definitely put it above Howl's, maybe above Leon's, like top of bottom four.
I think it's top. Personally, I would put it top of bottom four.
I mean, that's fair.
I'm more scared of it than the other two teams, but that is because I have PTSD from Suicune.
Like, honestly, I want to like this team more. It's just a matter of I don't see where I'm afraid of this. Like, as long as I prep for, you know, like hammer down the few nails that pop up. Eh.
I would say Genesect, Infernape, Suicune, Alolan Ninetales. I think those four are, even though there's not a lot of synergy there, I think those four are pretty scary. And I would say none of his Pokemon besides Jolteon and Dugtrio really need to worry about rocks.
I do think we probably are sleeping on Terra Regidrago. That thing with Dragon Dance is a huge threat, especially since it can flip the matchup with Terra Steel.
Yeah.
It gets Earthquake, it gets Earth Power, it gets Hammer Arm. Its Dragon moves are crazy strong. You know, I do think that the end game probably is going to be Scarf Genesect, clean up, Regidrago sweep, or Calm Mind, Sub Suicune kind of outlasting everything. The fit is pretty clunky overall, and you are really relying on Ninetales to really hold it down with Veil and its typing. I think I can agree with putting it maybe above Leon's, mainly just because Genesect is insane to prep for. Genesect gets every move in the game and is the best Scarfer. And Ductrio does force shed cells on in prep.
Yeah.
So I think I'd probably put it at the top of bottom 4.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like top of bottom 4 is appropriate for Zappo's team, which it feels right.
I think out of all the teams that we've ranked, this one might have the potential to bite us in the ass the most, where it's like we were wrong about this.
I feel like, however, if it's going to bite us in the ass, it's going to bite us in the ass because of how and who is piloting it rather than the team itself.
Yeah,
because,
I agree.
I feel like, because of all of the odds and ends, this feels like it's a great, like, sucker punch kind of team. Like, not like the actual move, but like, it's just going to hit you with something that you're just not prepared for because you wouldn't think of it.
One other thing to note is the hazards are pretty much non-existent for this team. It's Infernape and Dugtrio Stealth Rock, which is like, are you really clicking rocks with those guys?
At least not Dugtrio. Dugtrio was coming as a revenge killer and nothing else. The fact that
he clicked rocks. He clicked rocks against my Heatran in my match. Crazy man. He said, "I knew you were gonna switch." I'm like, fair enough.
All right, fair enough. You know what? And like I said, that like a lot of this is gonna come down to sucker punches that you get out of nowhere that are be like, all right, why did you do this? And it gives him a great advantage. I think that's gonna be great. I think the person piloting it is going to be able to do more than this team on paper looks like it should be able to do.
Yeah.
But I feel like
I think this is a sleeper team if the pilot's good, just because, like I said, all the mons are good even if they don't work together.
Yep. All right,
All
let's see.
Last 4 teams, guys.
We got Totem Raptor with. Oh, this is the Tapu Koko team.
It's kind of strange because it's Tapu Koko without a real Unburden Sweeper. He does have Grafai, and it is a Terra Captain with Poison, Grass, and Dark, but it's not the best Unburden Sweeper in the world.
And not a single Paradox Mon either, which is really surprising.
It got picked with a wheel.
Oh yep. Nightgale's team was the wheel team.
So for the viewers that don't know, Nightgale actually used a random number generation to figure out what he was picking for this team. So that is a thing. I think it gave him good mons. Kind of. It gave him Mega Camerupt, which is not a mon. It gave him Druddigan, which I don't believe is a mon. He's got 3 electric types. Which, sure, you've got a Tapu Koko, so I see the synergy, but
Thunders can take advantage of it.
Yeah, like Thunders can take advantage of it. I guess the Electrode can, but
well, Thunders can't because it's flying.
Oh, true.
Yeah, I mean, I think this one, with it being a random RNG team, like, it makes sense why the fit's kind of clunky. Galarian Slowking plus Clodsire is like, okay. They kind of fill a lot of similar roles, but those guys paired with Skarmory and Landorus, that is a very solid defensive backbone. Tapu Koko is a great mon. Hisuian Electrode's a great Terra Captain, and maybe Grafai can do some cool stuff. I don't know how many spots we have left, but I'd probably put this in bottom 4 too.
Yeah,
just because of how clunky it is.
Yeah, this feels like bottom. This feels like it's definitely a bottom 4. I feel like it honestly goes below Zappo's team.
I'd probably put it below Leon's too. I'd put it below Leon's for sure.
I'd put it below Leon's because it has 3 electric and 3 poison types.
Yeah, this thing is going to be afraid of every ground type that has ever existed.
Landorus and Skarm are going to be doing some heavy lifting for sure.
Just click gravity. Click gravity.
We could unironically see someone bring gravity.
If I face this team, I'm using gravity, Meowstic, and hitting earthquake every turn.
Yeah, because anything that's not weak to it is immune to it. So if you drop a gravity, there's no good swap-ins. Like I find it funny, and I always appreciate someone committing to the bit, but I don't think Nightgale's gonna go far with this.
I love this team. If it was my list, if this wasn't just a power ranking, if this was just teams I like, this would be top 4.
Oh, it is pretty funny. It's a funny team for sure.
Wholeheartedly.
The Gafai Eye is super swag.
I absolutely love this. I think that this team's got a lot of personality. And if you're just looking at what team you like the best, this is definitely up there. Its weaknesses are way too easy to exploit. And the fact that it doesn't have a single ice resistance means Howl is going to have the time of his life with this team.
Does Howl play this team? Let's see.
He should.
Howl does not.
Oh no.
Howl's the easiest matchup right here.
The league's rigged against Howl. Oh man.
Yeah, honestly, I really don't have too much to say about this team because there's no thought put into it because it was RNG. So it's kind of hard to try to get behind the thought process when it was spin the wheel.
Honestly, am I crazy? Do I think Howl's team? Am I crazy for saying Howl's team is better than this one?
Howl's team is. I mean, this is the worst team. That's what Gray was saying when he said there's a team worse.
Yeah, honestly, I think that's fair. I think it's very fair to put Howl's team above this.
Howl has a lot of even though it's mono ice, the ice types he chose, they kind of cover weaknesses because you have thick fat, you have Kyurem, you have Frostlass for the ghosts, for the fighting types.
Yeah, I do think honestly that that the synergies with Howl's team make it better than the RNG mess that is Nightgale's.
I think it's definitely still gonna get some wins. I mean, you have Coco Lando, you have Galarian Slowking, you have good Pokemon.
Oh, true. But
even the low tier picks are pretty decent. Drotagon's a solid low tier guy, and Grifai can do some cool stuff. Electrode, Camerupt, but it's a mess.
Well, we'll move right past this one then and go to the London Lopunnies, run by Riot.
Oof.
This is an interesting team.
This is scary.
This is I think out of the high tiers, this is the most low-key threat, I think.
I think I'm in a similar boat with you, Conrad. Terra Necrozma is a great Terra captain. Diancie is also really good. The speed is awesome with Aerodactyl. Although I think there's a pretty big gap between Aerodactyl, Darkrai, and everything else.
150 to 125. I mean, see, here's the thing: is there's not a lot that's going to be in that range.
Well, 125 to 100 is what I'm.
True.
You probably have quite a few Pokemon that are going to be able to run Adamant and Modest against you, especially because Zapdos normally runs defensive, and Shaman's not really the most threatening Pokemon on its own.
Yeah.
So, you're probably going to get a lot of guys running Adamant on you. Something like a Cinderace, that's running Adamant, and it's going to Pyro Ball you.
Yeah.
And U-turn on you.
You can't easily run Adamant though because of Necrozma and Gouging Fire. The name's on the screen. I'm salute.
Yeah.
Those two are can easily speed boost on you.
That is true. He does have insane sweeping potential with Gouging Fire, Necrozma, and Mega Aerodactyl. Gouging Fire is probably the scariest setup sweeper. that we have in our tier, in our format. And Mega Aerodactyl and Necrozma are up there also.
The problem
Also, those BSTs are besides speed, are insane. His defense is off the charts.
I mean, you also have to think that's being artificially boosted by slacking. You can't forget that it's a slacking in the back there that just makes the stats look good, despite the fact that Traunt is going to be a thing. Like don't get me wrong, slacking is an amazing revenge killer. However, those stats are very inflated. It's essentially looking at a team seeing incredibly low stats, but they've got, you know, a Porygon 2. The stats here almost feel misleading because of stuff like that. And it's misleading in the wrong direction, because overinflating the stats means that people are going to be over prepared, over scared.
Well, across the board, the Pokemon are still all good. Like, everything is a starter or legendary or mythical, other than Caparaja. And Caparaja is not, you know, a terrible Pokemon on its own either, so...
see, here's the thing. My biggest issue with this team is that it's very stiff. You've got, outside of Baton Pass, 2 Pokemon that have Pivot. This team is going to need to hard swap a lot. And the more you hard swap, especially with something like a slacking, you're going to have issues. Especially with
that Flip Turn and Volt Switch.
Right, but you having only 2 mons that are capable of pivoting, whereas you look at someone like Void's team where it was 9 or 10. Like, this team is very set in stone, which means that each mon that is out needs to do more while it's out.
I agree. I would put it underneath Graze.
Yeah, I think somewhere in top 8. I think I'd probably go... I think I would put this team over Voids, yeah. I mean, the Gouging Fire is... Like, I've used Gouging Fire before, and that thing is really good. Swampert is really good. Mega Aerodactyl is really good. He's got a lot of Pokemon that I've used before and I have experience with, and they all really click together really well.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of power here. Between, you know, the Terra Necrozma, the Gouging Fire, like you said, the Aerodactyl, Darkrai, there's a lot of things that can punch holes in you and can build up the punch holes. Like, he's got a good mix of wall breakers and immediate threats. It's just, I feel like this team will be out pivoted. I feel like, sure, you're going to try to set up, but then, you know, you've got Gouging Fire standing in front of a Milotic and it's not going to do shit. So then you have to hard swap out to, you know, the Zapdos or, you know, someone else. And hard swaps are difficult to work with. It's easy to exploit them. Which, if you're forced into, you know, just hard swapping, then you could be in a pretty bad situation across the board, you know?
Yeah.
Even on Necrozma's hard.
But yeah, I think that, you know, our placing of that bottom of top 8 feels about right.
Yeah, I'm cool with that.
All right. So then next we've got
Lucky's
team.
The
Halifax Hawluchas, and we were talking before about teams that it just feels like you just staring at it just makes it feel like it's just gonna kill you. Magearna, Garchomp, Mega Gyarados, and Meloetta. I'm sorry, Meloetta was 6 points. How the hell did we manage that?
You're welcome. Sorry.
This team scares me.
Terra Raiku's good. Terra Bombi's good. Breloom's great. Petron and Moltres can hold it down defensively. Sableye with the utility. Like, every Pokemon on his team is strong and has a role.
Yep. It's very well defined, and it's going to be very hard to find holes to poke in this. Just even looking at this team, trying to dig deeper into it, it's got an overwhelming weakness to Fairy. But
you have Magearna.
You've got Magearna and Moltres.
And Petron.
Like,
Yeah.
you've got 3 big things to be able to handle it. So, yeah, sure, there's 4 things weak to it, but you've got strong resistances for it. This team is going to be a very difficult one to break. And with, the Rabombi, it's got webs, so it's going to be hard to knock that down. The Pecharunt as spin block is amazing here.
Magearna under webs. Oh.
Yep. Which makes it fine that the highest that the speed goes is 124. Would this be, that would be a little bit on the slower side. I'd like to have something like 130 or higher and as your fastest mon. But if you've got a really good webs user like Rabombi, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Spore, Breloom, also a thing. So that's you also have to worry about giving up free turns to a setup, Garchomp, Magearna, and Gyarados. You turn a Volt Switch on Raikou and Moltres, Parting Shot on Pecharunt into Magearna. Lucky really did a great job on building his team where he's going to be able to position his big threats to just end games on the spot.
Lucky's a really good player, too.
Yeah, Lucky's good.
Yep. Just looking at the team itself, it feels strong. It feels like this is going to be a hard team to beat. This
slow,
definitely.
though.
It is a little slow, but here's the thing: is with Rabombi with those webs, it's going to be able to, it's going to outspeed you.
The thing is, even though it's slow, the bulk is off the charts.
Yeah, but it's slow and its hazard removal is not good.
Yeah, I guess you are really relying on Moltres, right? As I think Moltres is the only hazard removal on this team. Yeah,
defog on Rabombi technically exists, but that's not going to happen.
That's not a real thing.
Yeah. Your only real answer is going to be defog, which is going to get rid of your webs. You're going to struggle a little bit here with hazards, but I feel like that's negligible.
It's not a good team. I just think it's below. I'd put it below Grays still.
Yeah, I don't think it's the best.
This is definitely a top 4 team.
Do you think it's top 4?
Absolutely. Magearna, Garchomp, Mega Garrett, every mon on this team is good, has a role, and they cover each other's weaknesses very well.
It's a very well fine-tuned team. However, I feel like it belongs bottom of top 4.
I think I'd probably put it at number 2 personally. Honestly, I'd put it number 1 over Kumel, but
I don't see. Here's the thing: is yes, this team is set up so that everything it does is intentional, and every mon here is intentionally there for reasons, and it feels well put together. It feels synergistic. It feels like a well-oiled machine. But it does it definitely scares me to look at it. But if we compare it to Crummel's team, that's not Crummel's team. The Chi and Pao, Iron Crown, Cinderace, Terapagos. Comparing this to that,
I like this more. I think Magearna is the best Pokemon in our league. I think that's you can very confidently say Magearna is the best Pokemon in this league.
Fair. Best.
I just think it being slow and not having good hazard removal is going to really hurt it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think those are fair points. The speed is definitely an issue, especially because if you're bringing Rabombi, you're probably going to be leading Rabombi, right?
Yeah. Which means it's
I
going to
guess
get chunked.
You could go the Quiver Dance angle, especially since you have Terra Ground on it. But Rabombi's most likely going to be webbing because the team is pretty slow. Right. So I think that is a fair angle.
And the biggest thing for me is the fact that there's without good this team really needed a good spinner. Because without a spinner, you're forced to defog, and defog removes your own webs, which is crucial to this team's top performance. Yeah. And with that being the case, I feel like that knocks it down from being the top of the top. Like,
Okay,
it definitely is a solid top 4. I will not argue that one, but I feel like it's the lower end of the top 4 because of that. If this team had a spinner, there would definitely be a hard argument for, top 4 or like, number 1 or number 2. But I
think our top 4 is accurate. I think these are the 4 strongest teams.
Yep.
I think I can agree with Krumel at number 1. I think the order that Duke has it right now is probably how I'd put it.
Yeah, I mean, this seems about right. But we do have a last team in a newcomer to the Black Dolphins in Kunag B with the Claydol Servers.
You want to say that middle word?
Not even a little bit. Not even a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm not about to get demonetized from that.
Yeah.
Oh man,
Yep.
But this is looking at this team, and my eyes immediately go to the overall weaknesses. This team's got nothing. This team has answers for every type. And from looking at it, it's solid answers to every type. There doesn't really feel like any weak mon here. Like, obviously your top end being mostly Iron Valiant Meowscarada and
his speed is great.
His speed is fantastic. Talonflame's doing a lot of help here. The team, Iron Valiant Meowscarada and Golden Go, is going to make this incredibly strong, if not, a little bit a little more lopsided. I feel like it's going to suffer from. I want to say it's going to suffer from coverage, but I keep praying that Meowscarada is terrifying.
Iron Val too. Glamora Goldango, by the way. So good luck removing those hazards.
Yep, with Goldango, it's definitely good. Like, this is definitely Goldango's the best spin blocker.
And then you have Muck too. So if you even try to stop it, those two with like Dark and Psychic. Good luck.
It covers the weaknesses perfectly. Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I think this team is really well built. I think I think that, this is a great balanced team where, you've got a lot of the fundamentals of competitive Pokemon battling with, great rockers, great, team got a decent spinner with Glamora, what's that unique one that it gets?
Mortal Spin. Yeah.
Mortal Spin.
The one thing that holds this team back, I would say, is no ground type. So you can Volt Switch on this team forever.
Yep. Yeah, it definitely suffers from a lack of a ground type, and I feel like that's definitely going to be a problem. It's definitely relatively strong. It's also one of those teams that's relatively stiff. 3 U-turn mons and a Volt Switcher. It's decent, but it's on the lower end of what we've seen out of this draft season. So it feels a bit more stiff than some of the other teams. It's not going to be as fluid. It's not going to be able to keep up as well with the pivot game. With that being said, I do think that this is relatively strong, but I'm not blown away.
I'd put it at top of bottom 8.
That's fair.
I know this is definitely better than bottom 8. This is
better
definitely
than Voids.
This is definitely a top 8 team. I do think this is probably better than Voids' team. Glamora, Goldango, and just the there's a lot of bulk on this team, and there's a lot of speed on this team. With Void's team, I think we had talked about how you're kind of going all in at some points with the team.
Yeah.
And the lack of, other than Tapu Fini, great hazard removal kind of does set it back a little bit. I I just think Glamora Goldango is pretty oppressive to deal with. We've seen a number of times that, and I'm sure we've seen in many leagues that Goldango plus Hazards is a winning formula.
Yep.
I didn't win with it. I lost every game, but I hear you.
It's strong. You just weren't good with it.
True.
But I definitely agree. I think Glamora is an incredible spinner and hazard setter. Goldango being the best way to prevent hazards from being removed. It makes this team really strong. I think that the top end of this team could be a little bit better, with most of the physical or most of the power coming from Valiant and Meowscarada.
That's true.
I feel like this team, it's going, like I said, it's got great fundamentals, but it doesn't feel like it's got that kind of overwhelming game-winning potential, you know?
I mean, the strongest mon on the team is Goldango. I think that is Goldango Make It Rain is the strongest move on this team, which is still pretty manageable, you know, because Steel isn't the best offensive type.
Right. I mean, and we've gotten to the point in Gen 9's life cycle where we've found every answer to Goldango, and it's relatively well handled in so long as the person going up against it kind of has any idea of how to handle it. I feel like with that being the case, I would put this in bottom 8 because of that alone. Like, yes, the Goldango Glamora is a fantastic pairing. However, I don't think the top end gives enough oomph to be able to back it up.
I think this is probably like splitting hairs with if you think this is better than Void's team. I mean, comparatively, Void has Mega Blaziken, Sandy Shocks, Tapu Fini, Scizor, Deoxys Speed, and Ogre Pond. Does that move you more than Valiant, Meowscarada, Goldango, Glamora?
Kind of, yes.
Okay. Terra Ice Sandy Shocks too, so that's also on Void's side. So,
Yeah.
I do think the Terra Captain, the best Terra Captain B has is probably Uxie. And Uxie can definitely be an annoying wall and Pivot Mon, you know, with Fairy. But it's not going to be a real threat to set up. It's going to take some time to get going.
So
you'll need good play and positioning for that.
Yeah, and it's not even, it's a good defensive. Like all of the Terra Captains that we've seen here are defensives. You could probably argue that Miltank has some offensive potential, but I feel like that's going to be niche moments where we see Miltank come in, Terra fighting, and bop something because of Scrafty. It's a budget Megalopoly.
Right, yeah, that's a good way to put it.
I feel like it's gonna have moments where that is useful, but 9 times out of 10, it's probably gonna go Terra Ground because this team doesn't have the ground type. I feel like Miltank is this team's ground type, which is gonna eat up your Terra. So Uxie's not gonna Terra. Goodra's gonna have limited ability to Terra because the Miltank's going to need it.
Another thing, Glamora is not the only spiker. Meowscarada gets spikes and T-spikes too. So you don't even have to go Glamora Gold. You can go Meow Gold,
True, but I mean, you'll probably be bringing Glamora also for the removal, because outside of Glamora, this team's only removal option is Rotom.
Talonflame. The removal's good. Yeah. Rotom and Talonflame get it done. And Glamora is there also if you want to slot in Mortal Spin.
Right, but I mean, the thing is, if you're going for the defog, then you ruin the setup you've got with Glamora and Uxie being able to set up rocks and, possibly Meowscarada bringing spikes. If you're bringing spikes, Meowscarada, the last thing you're going to want to do is defog.
True. Yeah, I guess having no Rapid Spinner is kind of counterintuitive to, the game plan of laying up the hazards.
It's relying on Glamora to get the Mortal Spin off, which itself could be blocked by, you're probably not going to ever put a Steel type in front of this thing, but if you do, you could potentially block spinning with just the steel type and not need a ghost for it.
That's a lot to ask of Lamora, though, to get the hazards up and to survive and to spin. Like that's a lot.
It's a lot of pressure on a mon that isn't that bulky.
Yeah.
So
okay. I think I've been talked in that Void's team is could go above it.
So, I mean, yeah, I feel like this is relatively decent. Like, there's probably arguments to be made, and some people might, put one team over another. But I feel like for the most part, this feels pretty good.
I'm happy with our placements. Krumel, Ams, and Lucky being top 3 makes sense to me. I think our top 8 makes sense. And I think every team makes sense in their placements. I don't think, when JT was here, he was given the Anthony Fantano scores. Every team got, like an 8 or a 9. So
right.
even if it's bottom, even if you're placed in bottom 4 or bottom, your team is still good.
Right.
And I think every team has a lot of skill expression and a high skill ceiling. So I think I'm pretty happy with our rankings overall.
Yeah, I am too. I think for the most part, this is a very solid depiction of everything that we've got in this league so far. So, congratulations to our top 4 for effectively putting targets on your backs.
Conrad, we're coming for you.
I'll be interested.
I'm not expecting to win and would not put myself up here, so.
Well,
hey, it's your fault for drafting Nagana Dell and Great Tusk and all them.
Yeah. But with that being said, guys, this is going to be the end of our video for you today. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. And remember, all of this was just our opinions, our thoughts. If you guys feel differently, feel free to tell us about it. I'll be happy to hear any and all arguments as to why we should have actually put Howl at the very bottom. But with that being said, that's all we got. So we'll see you next time.
Peace.
All right.
How long?